Chapter 209. Wuxia hesitated for a moment, and then a trace of decisiveness flashed through his eyes. He nodded and said, "Deal." As expected of someone who's used to doing business. Yu Qianzhou smiled and said, "Lord Master, who exactly is that person?" Wuxia's expression was solemn as he said, "This person has never revealed his true appearance, but as you said, our Wu clan has been operating here for many years. We naturally have our own methods to find out who he is. Not to mention the sudden appearance of a mysterious patron, even if it's for the safety of our Wu clan, we still have to find out who he is. It's just that we're quite shocked to find out who he is. I hope that you won't drag our Wu clan into this. This person's background isn't simple." Yu Qianzhou waved his hand, "I know what to do even without your instructions. It won't be related to your Wu clan." "Who is it?" Wuxia frowned, "The young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Zhuixing." "It's him?" Yu Qianzhou, Bai Zizong, and the others exclaimed in surprise. The five of them looked at each other, and then they fell silent. They seemed to be surprised, but at the same time, it seemed to be reasonable. Wuxia glanced at them and asked, "What's wrong? Do you have a relationship with this person?" "Not really." Wu Liqing shook his head, "This person seems to be very friendly on the surface, and he likes to make friends. What happened to Shui, in the Gurgling House is indirectly related to him. She owed him a favor in the 100 Flowers Valley." "Friendly on the surface? What do you mean?" Wuxia stared at his grandson and asked. "He's very friendly and smart. He's so smart that I suspect he has ulterior motives, and we don't dare to get too close to him. Brother Yu, on the other hand, eats whatever he wants, and he doesn't hold back." Wu Liqing smiled. Yu Qianzhou glared and pretended to be angry. "What are you talking about? What do you mean I don't hold back? When did I skip your share? Do you think I'm the only one eating?" They looked at each other and were completely speechless, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Wu Liqing really wanted to say, "Every time we eat, you eat more than the four of us. Let's not talk about that for now." Wuxia waved his hand and said, "Yu Qianzhou, can you tell me where old ancestor Bai is now?" Yu Qianzhou sighed and said, "Can't you four clans give up on looking for him?" "No." Wuxia denied it right away. He sighed deeply and said, "You don't know what Patriarch Bai means to us four clans. It's not that we want to rely on him or anything. It's just that some people in the four clans think that it's meaningless for the four clans to be united for their own benefit. They are encouraging each other to set up their own sections. The situation is getting more and more intense. I don't know how many people are eyeing the four clans covetously. Once the four clans are separated, they are in danger of being annexed at any time." Lan Bingxue looked at the face that was even more beautiful than hers, and her eyes gaze swept over by Zizong's group. After the banquet was over, he thought to himself, Lan Bingxue turns out that this four great clans are having internal strife. There was quite a commotion for Wuxia to say such words, and your girl is so lucky. It's likely that these four first successors don't agree. If I had idea of such a made a move on Yu Qianzhou, I wouldn't have gotten the name. What happened? Put a hand on his shoulder. Ma Jiugu turned around and asked, "Say it. Let's not look at the four clans who could old ancestor looked now. At her father anxiously. Yu Qianzhou nodded. Yu Qianzhou, how much do you know about the demon shook domain? Her head and sighed. That brat was the demon domain. She slowly walked out with Lan Bingxue as help. The sect leader didn't plan on Yu Qianzhou was being chased by Qing. He just wanted to put on a show in front of Qing. He was scared out of his wits. He is cultivating when he saw that his master the other party actually teleported in front. Are you sure that you four clans? As soon as he entered the cloud, he immediately their master-disciple relationship the center of the demon domain. The sect leader was also a long ancestor living in seclusion, a cultivator at the final stage of the cross-around. It's funny that Qing simply chased after a long time outside he exhaled. The reason why he disappeared into the demon in the end that he didn't with Qing's cultivation in the final phase of nature's test. All of them have extraordinary potential and let him escape. I have never heard hearing in by Susan's I really don't know how that brat has finally felt. My clan may not be able to really breathe a sigh of relief and white clan. Ferdinand shook his head and smiled bitterly. Bai Suzhen suddenly looked back.
Yu Qianzhou
sneered,
seeing him
like
like
this.
this.
She walked up
You
to
four
him and
clans
asked
want
to
to
go
go
deep into the
What's
center
wrong?
of the demon
Lan
domain.
Bingxue
was also shocked.
The top three
I'm
sects
so
of the
unlucky
righteous
the
this.
demon
Hibiscus
sects
combined
I was
only
just
tears
spellbound
down
on
the
supporting
cloud
immediately
relaxed,
which was
and
not
now I'm
far
being
from the
chased
periphery
by a
of
cultivator
the
domain.
final stage of the
Others
crossing.
might
dare
not
to
know
go too far
she
away
knew
from
that
Sky Cloud had the
just a little
ability to
appear and
just a little
disappear
bit more.
unpredictably.
Seeing him sneer,
If
he was
normal
normal
before
others
others
couldn't catch
do you
him.
think
I
that
might
the
not
four
have been able
clans
to escape
the
center
but
of
from
the
now
demon
on,
domain.
I was so
he is no
scared.
longer a
Yu
disciple of
Qianzhou
supporting
Yu
immortal said in a
I don't know
relaxed
how
manner
strong
without
the
the
four
protection
clans
of
are,
supporting
but I know
immortal.
that
You
you
are
are
expelled from the
dreaming.
supporting immortals.
You are talking about something that
why would a
four
cultivator
clans
from
can't do.
Guangzong want to kill you?
Not to mention the
Joke,
four
is it
clans.
because
Why
you
didn't
helped
even
the entire
Wuxia
Empire were to join forces?
I believe
they
they
might not
come
be able to
forward.
enter the
This
center,
matter
especially
wouldn't
when
have
she saw the
escalated to
long
this
hem
point.
of
Bai
his robe.
Zedong
and the others were
He was
shocked.
naked behind
I'm
his
old
side.
little
Shook
muddle
his head
heads
and
were
said,
exposed.
I never interfere with the decisions
what kind of danger he had encountered. How many cultivators turned around and stared at him?
Yu Qianzhou
said,
I heard that your girl's
I don't
face
care
too
how
much.
big the Wuxia
It's not your
Empire
fault.
is.
Yes,
but I know that the
it's my
entire
fault.
demon
Ferdinand
domain
nodded
has
and
a
said,
radius
Bai
of
Suzhen
tens of
on the other
millions
hand
miles from you. Didn't think so. It is at
Yu
least
Qianzhou
several
went
times
to
the
the
demon
size
domain
of
forgot a lot
Wuxia
of spirit grasses. She bit her lips and said,
he secretly
I can
take
take
my
my
time
domain
and
in
hand
such
them
a
over.
large area.
You must pay attention.
Wuxia
Secretly
to
find a
then he changed the
damp
temp
in her
said
heart
with a smile.
there was nothing
Although
more
just
just
like
like
that,
Yu
Qianzhou's
Qianzhou's
face
don't
was
underestimate
cured.
the cultivation
shook his head and
Wuxia
smiled bitterly.
Empire.
Even
I'm afraid
Majugu
it is
couldn't
different
help
from
but
what you
explain.
see on the
Is it
surface.
I believe it
legendary
won't take long
pill
for the whole
according to the
cultivation
information
world to
collected
collapse.
by
I was
Wuxia
expelled
over
from
the
the
years.
immortals.
There
I
are
make
hundreds
one
of
immune to
cultivators
hundreds
at
of
that
poison
time.
stage of the
I'm
passing
afraid that the
according to
Yu
Qianzhou
rarely show
Huangsang
themselves.
should cast their net to find me.
If
these
didn't
people
see the
join
appearance
forces,
of the convenient
where can
hill
me to
at
show
that
myself
time.
in public
The
for a
10
while.
great
Not only
demon
did it
kings
give off
and
the
the 10
tail
ghost
go
king
out,
can't
but it
stop
also
period
emitted
of time.
7 colored rays of light. By Suzhen's
Yu
peerless, it was the
Qianzhou's
first time in my
gentleness
life
she
that I
rolled
saw
down
such a
worried
pill.
pill.
Do you really think that the entire demon domain
Yu
only has the
Qianzhou
10
was a
great
little
demon
dazed.
kings and the 10 ghost kings? He had the urge to hug and kiss her. Isn't it? Just when he was thinking about it,
asked.
his divine sense suddenly
Old
fluctuated.
master,
I told you where the ancestor
someone was
of the
looking
Bai
for
clan
him.
is, so there is
Yu
no need to
Qianzhou
talk
was
nonsense.
surprised and
said, "It's news
However,
from the pillar
for
of
the sake of my
four brothers. There are
Could
some
it be
things
that
I
there's
still
an
have to
improvement in
remind
the
mission
four
that I gave to
clans?
little Tian?" After a pause,
Sister,
Yu
I have
Qianzhou
something
said
to do.
word by word, "Old master,
I'll go out for a
listen
while."
carefully." As soon
The
as he
periphery
finished
of the
speaking,
demon domain
he took
is
off his
guarded by
long
the
robe
10
and
great
put it
demon
on.
kings
and the 10 ghost
Then,
king. He disappeared without
a
a
demon
trace.
king
and a ghost king
Bai
jointly
Suzhen bent
control
down
a
to
territory.
pick up the
torn clothes on
The
ground
demon
and
king
held them
is in
her
charge
hands.
of the young,
and the ghost
her pretty
king
face
is in
was
charge
filled
of the
with worry.
This is the periphery, and the inside is the most chaotic and dangerous place in the demon domain. The
There
rear
are
garden
probably
of the
nearly
national
10,000
demon
demon
had
kings
become a
and
forbidden
ghost king
area who have reached the final stage
Actually,
of the
there was
passing
nothing
calamity
they could
stage.
do about it.
As
At
for the
this
other
time,
countless
there were
demons
many
and
people
ghosts,
in the rear garden.
it is needless to say. There were adults and children, and all of them
Old
were dressed
master,
shabbily. Do you still think the power
none
of
of them
your
were
four clans
presentable,
can enter the
and they
central
all looked
area
at
of
the
the
surrounding
demon courtyard with fear? I'm afraid that none
No
of you
one
can
dared
come
to
out
make a
alive,
sound,
and there were probably more than 100 people. They were stunned. These people were brought here by Ling Feng and the nearly
others while they were
10,000
cultivating
demon
in the
kings and
capital.
ghost king. Nowadays,
How is this
the
possible?
three of them could be said to be living
If the
a demon
comfortable
domain
life,
had such strength, they
wouldn't it have
cultivated and
occupied the
peace,
human
and with the
territory a long
nourishment of
time
spirit
ago?
stones and spirit
Humph.
pills. Their cultivation
There are
was
naturally
rising
secrets
secrets
that
that outsiders don't know.
In
In
the
the past, it was something
Maybe you
they
will
didn't
have a
even
chance
dare
to
to
find
think
out
about
in
in
the
the future. They didn't have
That's
to
all I
worry
have
about
to say.
food and drink,
The four clans
and there was
should
no
know.
one to restrict them.
Yu Qianzhou
They
cupped his
also had
hands
the
and
money
said
to
to
Bai
Bai
Xiong
Zedong
gave
and
them
the
to
others.
spend. Thank you for your hospitality.
Although they couldn't
these
normally
days.
appear in the general's
I
mansion,
have something to
they
do
would
and
climb
have
over
to
the
leave.
wall and stroll around the
My
capital
four
when they were
brothers,
free.
goodbye. The three of them
Wait.
did not dare to neglect the
Wuxia
task that
stopped
Yu
him and
Qianzhou
frowned.
had entrusted
According
them
to
with.
what
you said, the four
The
clans
purpose
have
of their
no
stroll
chance
was
to
to find
find
people
people
with
with
spirit
spirit roots for cultivation.
But I have never heard of what you
Sure,
said.
Xiao Tian looked at the group
Why
of
are you so
people in the
familiar
rear
with
garden
the
and didn't
situation
know
of
whether
the
to
demon
laugh or
domain?
cry. What kind of people did Ling
Chapter
Feng and
210.
the others bring here? He was doubting
Most
what he
of them
had
looked
said.
like beggars,
Or they
Yu
looked like they
Qianzhou
were in
smiled.
dire straits.
It's okay if you haven't heard of
Some
it.
of them had eaten their fill
You'll know
and
when
were
you get to
squatting
the
in the
monster
shade of a
ghost
tree,
region,
scratching lice.
You're so sure.
On the wall of the
Have you
small
gone
courtyard,
deep into the monster
Ling
ghost
Feng
region?
and the others sat side by
Wu
side,
Sihai asked,
while Shi Shaotian
Yu
stood on it.
Qianzhou's heart skipped a beat.
The four of them looked at the group
He
of
curled
people
his
in the
lips
garden
and said,
I can't say
Sure
deep.
Shaotian smiled bitterly
I've been
and
touring
said,
around the
Ling
monster
Feng,
ghost region
did you bring
for a
all
few
the
days.
beggars in the capital here?
I just have some friendship
He
with the
looked
ghost
up at him
king
and
that you
smiled.
mentioned.
If the
Ah,
three of us really brought
they were
all the
shocked
beggars in
again.
the capital here,
This
Even
guy's
10 of your
secrets have
generals'
been peeled
mansions
off
wouldn't
one
be able
layer
to
after
accommodate
another,
them.
let alone this garden.
Wuxia put on a look of
We also
disbelief
want to
and
bring
said,
some decent
as far
people
as I
for
know,
boss,
the
but
10
boss
great
already
monster
told us
kings
to
and
keep
the
a
10
low
ghost
profile.
kings never interact with
If
people
we
from
brought
the
so
outside
many ordinary
world.
people here,
I'm
you
afraid
said
that
you
the
have some
government would have
friendship
long
with
been
them.
alerted and people would have
Forgive me
noticed.
for finding it hard to
Look
believe.
at these beggars and vagrants.
I even
They
doubt
don't
that
have
what you said about the
families, and
Bai
they're all
clan's
alone.
ancestor is true. Without them,
Bai
no one in the
Zitsong
capital
and the
would
other
know.
3 looked at Wuxia
Sure,
in
Xiao
surprise.
Tian waved his finger and
They
said,
wondered why
"But
he
look,
would say
why
such
did you
rude
bring
words.
even old men here?" Yu Qianzhou
What does
smiled
boss want them
calmly.
for?
"Old man, what I
That's
said is
good.
true. At least
I
they
can't
won't
help it
starve
if
to
you
death
don't
on the
believe me."
streets. Time
It was
is the
rare
best
for
proof.
Xian Ping to say such a
In
long
short,
sentence.
I have a clear conscience.
Ling Feng nodded and said,
Wuxia
Boss
looked at him
that
and
as
said,
long as they
"You
don't
said that
belong
you
to
have
any
some
sect
friendship
and
with
have
the ghost
spiritual
king of the
roots,
monster ghost
regardless
region.
of age, the more the
Do you
better.
have any evidence that can convince
Sigh.
me? Let's
If you
wait
do,
for the boss
you
to
can
get
show
here
me.
first. It will make
Sure,
me
Xiao
feel at
Tian
ease."
shook his head and raised a
Old
small
fox.
silver ball in his hand.
Yu Qianzhou sneered secretly. He asked
He
doubtfully,
scratched his head
"I
and
just
smiled
used my
bitterly.
divine sense
I
to
really
check
don't know
inside
how to
and
prove
found
it.
that it's empty.
Can this really
Old
summon
man,
boss?
among the 10 ghost
It
kings
should be
of the monster
possible.
ghost region,
There's
there's a
Otherwise,
ghost general
boss
called the
wouldn't
Ghost
have given
King.
this to us for no reason.
Have you heard of him?
Ling
The
Feng
ghost
said.
general of the monster ghost
Sure,
region.
Xiao Tian looked at the silver
He was
ball
born
in
at
his
the
hand
wrong
and
time.
smiled bitterly.
Even after his
I
death,
hope boss
he
can
is
take
always
them away
in
as
pain
soon
and
as
regrets.
possible.
He
Otherwise,
cries every
there
night.
will be hundreds of people eating
Wuxia
every day.
paced and
What?
murmured. Your
He
grand
suddenly
general's
turned
residence
around and
can't
said,
even support
"The ghost
100
general
people.
should be the ghost king."
Yu Qianzhou suddenly
If you are
appeared
talking
on
about
top
him,
of the wall
I have
and
heard
laughed.
of him.
This
Boss.
ghost general seems to be the
The
only
few of them
well-known
turned
ghost
around
king
and
in the
exclaimed in
Wuxia
surprise.
cultivation world. After Sure
You mean
Xiaotian's
him?
joy, he smiled
Do you have some
awkwardly
friendship
and said,
with the ghost
"Boss,
general?"
That's not what I meant.
Bai Zitsong and the others
It's
looked
just
at
that
Yu
my father
Qianzhou.
is about to return to the
The latter
imperial
nodded
court
and said,
"It seems
I'm
that
afraid
only
it will
he is
arouse
known in
my
the
father's
Wuxia cultivation
suspicion.
world. I don't know how
I
to
have some
explain
friendship
it to him.
with him and I have some
Yu
evidence.
Qianzhou looked at the hundreds
I just
of people
don't know
and
if you
nodded
believe
slightly.
me. They were
Wuxia
all
raised
people
his
with
eyebrows.
spiritual roots.
Then he
He
calmed
didn't
down
expect
and said
Ling
calmly,
Feng and the
"Then
other
you might
two
as
to
well
be able
say
to
it
gather
first.
so many people in such a
It
short
seems that if
period
I
of
don't
time.
tell you something, you will
However,
treat me as a
he
liar."
was stunned when he saw a few
But
old
let me make
people
it
among
clear
them.
in advance. Let's talk inside.
There are some things that only the
Yu
4
Qianzhou
families know.
directly entered the courtyard
Don't
from
tell
the
it to
top of the
anyone
wall.
else.
After
Otherwise,
the 4 of them entered
don't
the
blame
main
me
hall,
for not warning
Yu
you when you
Qianzhou
get
sat
into
on a
trouble.
chair in the main hall and
Yu
asked
Qianzhou
curiously,
warned him
"The
deliberately.
pillar of the state general has been
Of
fighting
course.
at the borders for many years."
Wuxia nodded repeatedly.
Why is he suddenly returning
His
to the
eyes had lit
imperial
up
court?
because of his words.
Sure, Xiao Tian
Maybe he
smiled
could know
and
some
said,
unknown
"It's
secrets.
nothing. The
People
Pingwa
were born
general
to be
has
curious.
2 beautiful daughters. Yu
The
Qianzhou
eldest
nodded
is going to
slightly
marry
and
the
said
current
slowly,
crown prince.
"This ghost
and the
general
second
was
is
a
going to
general
marry
who
the
fought with
eldest
the
son of the
ancestors of the
Weiguo
Li
general.
family in the previous dynasty.
My father, the Pingwa general,
He was defeated
and the
and
Weiguo
died.
general are the 3
By
great generals
chance,
of the
he
empire.
became a ghost cultivator.
Maybe it's because of this
After
that
his
my father has
cultivation
to
was
come
successful,
personally to
he
congratulate
gathered his
them.
old subordinates who
An
died in the
important
battle
official
and
with
gathered
an
hundreds of
important
thousands
official,
of ghost
and an
cultivators.
important official with the crown prince.
Finally, he became
Yu
a ghost
Qianzhou's
king of the
brows
monster
twitched.
ghost region. He seemed to
His
feel that
original
something
name is
wasn't
Meng
right.
Yan.
What? He frowned and
The
said,
ghost general
"Xiao
is Meng
Tian,
Yan.
among the 3 great
Wuxia
generals of the
suddenly
empire,
lost his
who
voice.
has the greatest military
Yu
power."
Qianzhou was stunned and
It's
said,
not a matter
"Why?
of who has the greatest
You know
military
him.
power. But in his
The
heart,
3 great
he
generals
muttered,
control
"That's
6
impossible."
million soldiers and horses,
Wuxia
and
said
there
in a
isn't
deep
much of a
voice,
difference in power.
history. There was indeed
If
an
we're talking
iron-blooded
about general
military
who fought
power,
with the Li
I'm
clan's
afraid it's still my
ancestors for the
father.
world.
Sure,
His
Xiao
name was
Tian
Meng
said
Yan.
with a hint of pride.
He was supposed to be
Why?
the winner, but because the
Yu
cultivation
Qianzhou
world
asked.
intervened in the war,
Sure,
he
Xiao
died with a
Tian
grudge.
raised his hand and gestured.
The south
Your
of the
Wuxia
Huaxian
Island
Empire
is the
is a
culprit.
barren land that is rarely visited by
Continue
humans.
with what you said.
In the words of our
So it was
cultivation
history.
world, it's called the
Yu
demonic
Qianzhou
domain.
rolled his eyes for free
The
and
east
continued.
side, Meng Yan
has
had
always
always
been
been guarded by
concubine
the
named
troops of the
Yuji.
Weiguo general.
The 2 of them
The
lived
Pingwa
happily, and
general's
the
troops
monster
are
ghost
mainly
region.
guarding the capital region.
I have
as
a good
well as the
relationship
northern
with
border.
the couple.
My father,
When I was playing
the pillar
in the
of the
monster
state
ghost
general,
region,
is
they
guarding
treated
the
me me warmly and gave me a
The
Ghost
East
King
Side,
token.
Linhai, has no
Whether
neighbors.
it is a demon or a ghost, they have to give me some
The
face
South
when
is
they see
barren,
this token.
and
although it's dangerous,
when I
there
was
are
playing
no
in the
wars.
Monster Ghost region,
Although
I
there's
avoided
a big
being
country in the
disappointed
north,
by some
they're
small
located
fries.
in a bitter cold land.
That's the general
In
relationship
terms of
between
strength,
me and
they
Ghost
can't
General.
compare to our empire.
As for whether I can make
Only
you
the
believe
West
me
that
or
my
not,
father guards
I
is
can't
not
do
only
anything
vast,
about it.
but it's also connected
He said
to
it
the six
casually,
countries.
but they didn't know that it shocked
Ever since
them.
our empire was founded,
This guy was
the six
actually
countries
playing
have
in the
never
Monster
stopped
Ghost
having
region
conflicts,
that everyone in the
big or
cultivation
small.
world was afraid of.
Think about it. boss.
Was there any justice in this
For
world?
so many years, the troops
sounded
in the
a little
east,
absurd,
south,
but the
and
few
north
of them
have been
firmly
preparing
believed
for
it
war
because
all
the
year
story
round.
behind this fellow could not
On
be
the other
judged by
hand,
common
the
sense.
West that my father guards is
Wuxia
always preparing
swallowed
for
his
war.
saliva and coughed.
Therefore, among
Since
the three
Ghost General
great
gave
generals
you a
of the
Ghost King
Empire,
token,
my
I
father's
wonder if you
troops
can
are
let
the
me take a
strongest.
look. You
Oh.
have to know that the Wu clan
So
is
that's how
famous
it
for their
is.
eyesight. Yu Qianzhou
We can
had
tell
always
whether
been
it's
in the
real or
cultivation
fake
with
world,
just one look.
so he really didn't know much
Not
about
only
these
him,
things.
but even by Zitsong
After a
and the
moment
rest
of
felt a
silence,
little embarrassed.
he asked again,
Then what
who
about
knew
the
what the
defense
Ghost
of the
King
West
token
when your
was?
father returns to the capital?
No matter how good the old
Isn't
man's
he worried
eyesight
at all?
was,
He couldn't recognize it, right?
Boss, you don't know.
The few of them could already guess
Sure,
what he was
Xiaofan
planning.
laughed. Old fox,
Last year,
I knew
the
you
6
would have your
countries
eyes on my
attacked our
token.
empire together,
You
instantly
took the
angering
bait.
my father. Yu Qianzhou
My father
sneered in his
immediately
heart.
issued a death order.
He scratched his head and
With a
said,
single command,
I don't even know
his
if I
2
have it
million
with me.
troops split into 6
Let me
groups
take a
and
look
defeated
first.
the 6 countries one by one.
He reached into his
causing them
storage
to suffer
bag and
great
searched
losses.
for a while.
In the end,
After a
the
while,
6
he
countries
said,
sued for
"Found
peace.
it."
At the beginning of this
token
year,
was raised
they signed
in
an
Yu Qianzhou's
inviolable
hand.
treaty with our Wuxia
There were some
Empire.
simple carvings around.
That's why my
but in the
father
middle
can
was a
return
pair
to
of
the capital
deep
with
eyes.
peace of mind.
It was
As for the
demonic and
defense of the
captivating.
West, my father has
The few
already
of them
handed
looked
it over to
carefully
my
and
second
were
brother.
immediately stunned.
Second brother
Their
has grown up
expressions
under my
gradually
father's
became
guidance.
sluggish.
I believe
Their
that
entire
it won't be a
mind
problem
was
for
filled
him
with
with
that
that
pair
pair
of
of
cold and demonic eyes.
Oh. That
Following
means
that,
that there's no
an
war in the West
awe-inspiring
for
general
now.
wearing golden armor
Yu
appeared in
Qianzhou
their
asked.
minds and gradually matched the
Sure,
pair of eyes.
Xiaotian laughed.
The general's
The 6
robe
countries
was
have
fluttering
suffered
behind
great
him.
losses.
He was holding
Even
a
if they
sword
want
in
to
his
cause
hand.
trouble, it'll be
He
impossible
was staring
for them
at
to
them
do
so
so in the
as if
next
he was
decade
looking
or
at a
so.
group of ants. Seeing the proud
Oh,
look
no.
on Sure Xiaotian's face,
There's something
Yu
strange
Qianzhou
about this
didn't ask him
token.
anything else.
Wu Sihai,
However,
who was in the middle
his heart,
stage of
he was
calamity
grumbling.
passing, was shocked.
There was no war at the
He
border,
bit the tip
but
of
the
his
Sure
tongue.
family controlled the strongest
The pain
troops of
woke
the
him up.
Wuxia Empire.
As for Bai Zitsong
A single
and the other
army was
3,
able to defeat
because
the
their
armies of the
cultivation
6
was not
countries
high.
at the same
Their
time.
minds were immersed in it and
One
could
could
not
imagine the
extricate
battle
themselves.
prowess of this army.
The former blocked
Some
in front
people
of the token
probably
and
couldn't
couldn't
sit still
wake
anymore.
up.
By
Look,
Zitsong
they
and
even
the
brought
rest
up
who
the
were
matter of an
mesmerized by the
alliance
token
marriage.
trembled. They woke up as if they were in a dream. Their faces were
Chapter
filled with
217.
disbelief. It
Ling
really
Feng
is the
walked
Ghost
over
King's
and
token,
said,
boss.
Wu Sihai
turned around and asked,
Xianping
can I
found the
take a
people
look?
in the garden.
Old man,
Although they
it's
don't
just
have
a
much
broken
aptitude,
token, they still have some
what's so
spiritual
special
roots.
about it?
I wonder if they
Qianzhou
can be
generously
used.
gave it to him.
Yu Qianzhou
The
came
Ghost
back to
King's
his
token
senses
is a
and
broken
smiled.
token.
It's fine as long
Wu
as they have
Sihai's face
spiritual
twitched.
roots.
How
He
can
took
there
the
be so
token
many
and
people
examined
with
it.
good aptitude?
He tried to avoid
Those with
looking
good
at the pair of
aptitude
eyes.
have already been taken away by
After
the
a
major
long
sections.
time, he exhaled and
You
praised,
guys won't even
good
have the
stuff.
chance to find them.
This Ghost King's
why
token
did you
is
bring
made
the
of
old
the
man
rare
here?
nether iron. Sure Xiaotian glanced at the 3 of them and laughed in his heart. Normal ghost cultivators
Ling
can't
Feng
get
was
their hands
startled
on
and
this.
said,
Boss,
Didn't
really
you say
belongs
it's better
to
to
the
have
Ghost
more
King.
people regardless of age?
What's nether iron?
Yu
Did I say
was
that?
stunned.
Yu
It was his
Qianzhou
first time
and
hearing
immediately
about it.
came to a realization.
Wu Sihai
held the token and explained,
I think I
Ghost
did say that
cultivators
before.
and demon cultivators are
Forget
different
it,
from us
it's
cultivators.
better than nothing.
They don't
We
rely
can bring
on
them back
absorbing
to
spiritual
cultivate and they'll
energy
be
to
stronger
increase
than
their
ordinary
cultivation.
people.
They
With
rely
so
on
many
absorbing
people,
yin
we'll be
energy.
worried about our food supply.
Yin energy usually comes
It's
from
better to bring
underground
them
caves
back
and not do anything else.
They are divided into 9
We
levels.
can be self-sufficient.
The first level
By
is
the
the
way,
nether cave.
little Tian,
The second level
when you
is
have
the nether
time,
cave.
help me gather
all the
some
way up
grains
to the
and
9
seeds
nether
of all
cave.
kinds of fruits and vegetables.
The higher the level of the cave,
I have
the
great
stronger
use
the
for
yin
them.
energy and the
The
stronger
3
the
of them
yin
didn't
wind.
know what he was going to do.
The 9 nether cave is
Sure
the highest level.
Xiaotian nodded and agreed.
Even ghost
Yu
cultivators at the end of
Qianzhou
the Ghost
instructed
King
again,
can't withstand
Ling
it.
Feng, Baizi,
They will
and
be killed by the
Xianping
yin wind
continue
if they
to
dare
search
to
for
enter.
people with spiritual roots.
Under normal circumstances,
I'll still
ghost
say it.
cultivators at the end of the
I'll
Ghost
take as
King's
many as you can
cultivation
regardless
only
of age.
stay in the 8 nether cave.
It doesn't
to absorb
matter if
yin
your
energy.
aptitude is lacking.
As
I
for
have
the
a way
9
to
nether
solve it.
cave, only the
But
legendary
remember,
ghost sage
keep a low
dares to
profile
enter.
and don't let the other
The
sects
ghost
find
sage's
out.
cultivation is
I've been
equivalent to our
chased out of
legendary
supporting
soul
Immortal's
forming
Island.
stage.
Many
This nether
people
nether
want to
iron
kill me.
is a treasure that can only be found in caves that are my stronghold above. Don't let it be exposed. Chapter 2:11. The three of them looked at each other and Xiaofan asked in surprise,
"Which one is better?
Why were you chased out of
Yu
supporting
Qianqiu
Immortals
asked.
Island?" Mystic gold sand. Yu Qianqiu stood up and patted
The two are not
Xiaotian's
on the same
shoulder.
level at all.
He smiled
Mystic
and said,
gold sand can at most be
I've
used
taken
to refine
revenge for you in
treasures,
Anquan
while
Song.
nether iron can be used to
The head of
refine
Anquan
spiritual
Song,
treasures.
Lu Chongqing, and
Which
his
one do you
grandson,
think is better?
Lu Zhengguang, were both killed by me. No matter how good the item is, it needs the skill to refine it. This nether iron has the innate ability to absorb souls. Boss, you're not lying to me, right? The corpse sect of the demonic Tao has a magic weapon made of nether iron. They have captured many rogue cultivators and absorbed their souls. Do I look like a liar to you? Those rogue cultivators are like walking corpses, sighed and said, which is why they are ranked third in the demonic Tao. If I didn't kill him, would I have been expelled from the supporting immortal island? Yu Qianzhou muttered. Then the next time I meet Ghost General, the days of having I will ask him to help me get more nether iron. From now on, although his voice would have to rely on himself, they all looked at each other. Everyone, it seemed that this guy's relationship with Ghost General was not ordinary. Speechless, but they still didn't quite believe it and said, Yu Qianzhou, how could the righteous discuss something with you? Sect leader on Kwansung be killed so easily? The old fox is finally showing his tail from the sect. Yu Qianzhou sneered in his heart, come here but nodded on the surface and said, just say it, old master, get me a set of ordinary clothes. Since both demons and ghosts in the demon region have to show some respect when they see this token, supporting immortal and it is useless to keep it with you. Why don't you lend it to the four families? I'll definitely get into trouble if I stroll around the capital. We will return it to you after we find the old ancestor. Sure, we will definitely thank you after that. From Yu Qianzhou's words, he could tell that Yu Qianzhou was going to be here often. After he immediately agreed happily, they finally got out to find clothes for Yu Qianzhou. Bai Zizong and the other three turned their heads to the side were also overjoyed. As for Yu Qianzhou, if you paid attention, he flashed into the garden see that they were 100 or so people in the garden into Old Utopia. Master, that's a good idea. After giving some instructions, Yu Qianzhou took the token from his hand and ran over it directly into the storage bags. He smiled and said, Boss, it's not that I don't want to lend to see if it suits you, but this token is useful to me. This is my second brother's clothes. His figure seems to be about the same as yours. King token was taken away. Yu Qianzhou took a look and saw that the urge to snatch it back, jade belt, and suppressing his emotions were all prepared. He frowned and asked, why do you say that? Back and snappily said, when Meng Yan just told me to keep a low profile, he told me again and again not to give it to anyone else. If are you afraid that others go to the demon ghost region and flash the ghost hand and said, I believe it won't take long for Meng Yan to find out. Once he finds out that the token is in your hands, sure Xiaotian was stunned. He believed that Meng Yan's hundreds of thousands and the other two felt a little uncomfortable looking at the silk robes they were wearing. In a fit of rage, Yu Qianzhou frowned and said, Meng Yan has so many experts under him. If I say if old master thinks that the four great families can fight against Ghost General, sure Xiaotian could only run back to get what I'm afraid of is that this token won't be of any help. When Yu Qianzhou put on a slanted hat and adjusted his brand new black even more trouble, he instantly revealed a satisfied smile and said, good, not bad, not bad. There was also the demon king are really low profile, who shared the same roots as him. Xiaotian, from today onwards, I advise you to give up on this idea. I don't dare. Yu Qianzhou shook his head and smiled. Sure Xiaotian hurriedly waved his hand. Dumbfounded. He thought, he had calculated for a long time, what if one day he was happy? Where am I going to find spirit destroyed by Yu Qianzhou? After a while, waved his hand and said, don't be long-winded. Who is the demon king? In front of others, I'll be your follower. One of the 10 great demon kings. Behind others, I'll still be your boss. Is his relationship with Ghost General good? That's settled. Yu Qianzhou nodded and said, the other two exchanged glances and said, he is one of the 10 great demon kings. Find us a set of servants' clothes. He is the lord of a territory with Ghost General. Is it fun to be a servant's follower? The two of them are like brothers. Yu Qianzhou is in charge of and said, and the other is in charge of the 10,000 flower house. Ma Jiugu of supporting Immortal Island. The three looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. Even Ma Jiugu of supporting Immortal Island, after staying in the capital who was in the late tribulation passing stage, the three naturally knew what kind of place Demon King Flower House was. Wuxia could no longer pretend, and his speaking of 10,000 flower house, it should be known that Ma Jiugu was the #1 expert not only in supporting Immortal Island, but also tidied up the crooked hat on his head inside. Her demon slayer wand he had already put away the storage bag and the sword on his back. She was defeated by a demon king who was also in the late tribulation passing stage. If he wanted to take demon kings of the devil domain were indeed worthy of their reputation. The three looked at each other and didn't know if he was telling the truth or not and looked a little dispirited. One Ghost General was already difficult to deal with. It didn't seem like he was joking. Now there was Demon King Xiaotian and there were many Ghost King and Demon Kings. You really want to go to 10,000 Flower House? It seemed that even if he knew the whereabouts of the ancestor, it would be difficult to meet him again. Seeing him in a daze, Yu Qianzhou laughed inwardly, but he still nodded his head seriously and said, Old Master, I was just saying you don't need to be discouraged. Since you want to
if
go,
you really want
as
to
your
go,
follower,
at worst,
I naturally
I'll
have to
accompany
accompany your 4
you.
great families to the demon realm after I finish my business.
If you want to go, then hurry
Wu
up.
Xihai's eyes lit up and
Let's
said,
go.
Are you serious?
Let's go.
What do you mean
Don't
by
waste
serious?
time.
Yu Qianchou sneered
The
and
3 were
pointed at
completely
Zizong's group
speechless.
of 4. Yu Qianchou
said,
pushed
I only made
Xiaotian
this
out
trip
in a
because
hurry
of my 4 brothers.
As he walked, he
Do you
didn't
think I
forget
have
to
nothing
look back
better
and
to
warn
do
the
after
3
eating
who
my
followed
fill?
him? What are you 3
Bai
doing here?
Zizong and the other 3
Go
were
do what you
delighted.
need to do. They exchanged
Pillar of
glances
State generals
and cupped their
residence.
fists to thank him. Yu Qianchou
Wu
had
Xihai
lived here
said
for more than a
happily,
year,
what do you want
so
to
he
do?
was very familiar with the place.
Our 4 families may not be
in the wealthy
comparable
and
to
powerful
supporting
mansion,
Immortal Island,
the 2 of them
but we have
walked
some
out of the
ability.
back garden one after
Do
another.
you need our help?
The servants
Sure.
who passed by saluted when they
Yu
saw
Qianchou
Xiaotian,
touched his nose and
but
said
when they saw the
seriously,
servant in
using
new
the
clothes
4
behind
families
him,
is making
they
a
all
mountain
felt
out of
that
a
he was
molehill.
very unfamiliar.
It's enough with your
They
Wu
all
family's
secretly
help.
muttered, Why haven't
Old
I seen
master,
the 3rd young
can you
master
help me
servant
ask Yan
before?
Juisheng of 100 Flower
Sure,
Palace where he
Xiaotian
got the
got
4
confidently
treasures
in
in
front,
front,
while Yu Qianchou followed behind with his hands
Wu
behind
Xihai's
his
smile
back.
froze on his face.
His aura wasn't any weaker
After a
than
while,
the former's,
he said
but
awkwardly,
it seemed that his awareness
it's not
as a
convenient
servant
for my
was a
Wu
little
family
lacking.
to take action.
When the 2 of them
Is
were
there
about
anything
to
else
pass
that
the
you
main
need my
hall,
Wu
a
family's
beautiful
help with?
woman walked out. Yu Qianchou
The
waved
2
his
women
hand
on her left
indifferently
and
and
right
said,
were also
Forget
quite
it.
good-looking.
Behind
I'll
them
look
was a
for you
group
when
of
I have
servant
something
girls.
else.
Just
Don't shirk it
Xiaotian
again.
slowed down and said in a low
Hee-hee.
voice, You know my mother.
I'll help as long as I can.
The 2 beside her are my
Wu
eldest
Xihai smiled
sister-in-law
awkwardly.
and second sister-in-law.
He felt that something
They
was
married
wrong
a
no
few
matter
years
how
ago,
he thought about
so
it.
you haven't seen them before.
It felt like he was being
The
schemed
2 of them
against by Yu
inevitably bumped
Qianchou.
into each other.
Oh,
Sure, Xiaotian
then I hope
bowed
that the
and
next
said,
time I ask
Mother,
for your help will be within your
eldest
scope.
sister-in-law.
Second
Yu Qianchou's
sister-in-law.
tone sounded like he didn't have
The
any
servants
hope
on
for
the other
Wu
side
family.
also bowed to Sure
The more they
Xiaotian.
talked about it, the
Li
more
Hongyan
embarrassed
looked
Wu
at her
Xihai
son
felt.
lovingly.
He
Her
immediately
eyes
changed the
inadvertently
topic and
glanced
said,
at the servant
Why do you
behind
want
her
to know
son
where the
and
4
was slightly
treasures came from?
startled. Not
Yu
only
Qianchou
did this
squinted
servant
his
not bow
eyes
to
and
her,
didn't hide
he
anything.
actually stood there with his hands
He said in
behind
a
his
deep
back.
voice, There's a demon
Yu
clan in
Qianchou
the
looked at
extreme
her
north
and
called
nodded
the
with a
Snow
smile.
Fox clan.
When Li
Xiao
Hongyan
Shui,
saw who
who
it
followed
was,
the divine
she was
craftsman
immediately
in
shocked.
ancient times, was the
When
first
the woman
clan
beside
leader
her
of the
saw Yu
Snow Fox
Qianchou,
clan.
she frowned and said,
The 4
Uncle,
treasures that
is
the
this
divine
new
craftsman
retainer?
refined are the tokens
Why
of the
isn't
Snow
he bowing
Fox
to
clan's
Mother?
clan leader. She immediately
I
turned
want to
around
know
and
how the
shouted,
treasures of the Snow
Housekeeper,
Fox
who
clan
brought this
ended up
servant.
in Yan Juisheng's hands.
Why doesn't he know the most basic
Ah.
manners of servants?
Xiao Shui is from the demon
Someone
clan.
come.
Wu
Bring him
Xihai
to
was
teach him the
surprised.
rules. Bai Zizong and the other 3 looked at each other.
Bai Zizong
Chapter
then asked,
218.
The extreme north should be out of
Hearing
the
this,
Wuxia
Yu
Empire's
Qianchou
territory.
was dumbfounded.
How do you know
Not
about
only
it?
him, Li Hongyan
I just
and
heard
Sure
about it.
Xiaotian were also
I
dumbfounded.
was once entrusted by someone
Not
and
far
nearly
away,
forgot about
a
it.
man in his 50s jogged
I only
over
recalled
and
it last
repeatedly
night and
smiled
came to ask you
apologetically
about
at
it.
the woman. Yu Qianchou
He shouted at Yu
casually said a
Qianchou
few
in a
words
low
and
voice,
cupped his hands.
Still not coming with me.
Let's not talk anymore. Mr. Yu, I will make a trip back
The
to the
housekeeper
100
was
Flowers
Sure
Valley
Shanqing,
first,
a retainer of the general's
I will come
office.
back to discuss with the 4
He had
major
met Yu
clans about
Qianchou
the
many
trip to the
times in the
demon
past,
region, so he was familiar
Wait.
with him.
I have
He more or
something
less
to tell
knew
you.
what kind of person Yu
Wu
Qianchou
Xihai
was.
stopped Jiang Yi and hesitated
When he saw
for
Yu
a moment
Qianchou's
before
face
speaking.
clearly, he was
My
dumbfounded.
Wu clan already knows about
Close
the Yu
to 10
clan's
years
matter
had
in
passed,
Swallows
and his
own appearance had already
I believe
aged.
the other factions will know
However,
soon,
Yu
too.
Qianchou still looked the same.
I believe the
just that
supporting
his
Immortal
appearance
Island
had become
won't be
more
an
mature.
exception.
He
There's
naturally
also
recognized him
Wang
with a single glance.
I
and
reckon
was
they won't let
immediately
you
at a
off
loss
so
as to
easily.
what to do.
You better be
Shun-Qi,
careful. This has nothing to do with you. Take all the
Chapter
servants away.
212.
I haven't
There was
seen
a
my
short
wife for
moment
many
of
years,
silence in the
so we have
secret room.
something to talk about.
Apart from the Wu
Yu
clan's
Qianchou came
grandfather
back to his
grandson
senses
duo
and
Yu
smiled.
Qianchou, Bai Zizong,
He ordered
and
the
the others
others
were
keeper to
confused
leave.
and didn't know what kind of
Sure
riddle they were
Shun-Qi
playing.
nodded repeatedly.
Yu Qianchou's thoughts
After
were
getting Li
spinning
Hongyan's
rapidly.
permission, he took
Even
the
the
group
Wu
of
clan
servants
knew
away.
about his background, and
Seeing
the
that the
supporting
housekeeper
Immortal
didn't
Island
listen to
naturally
her,
wouldn't be
the
able to
woman
hide
was a
it
little
from them.
annoyed. He
She
sneered
glared
and said,
at him and said,
Lu
"Does the
Chongqing
general's
courting
office
death
have any rules?"
He
Watcher,
actually dared
don't
to
be
extend
rude.
his claws to my
Li
clansmen in the
Hongyan
secular
stopped
world.
her.
The other woman next to her quietly watched everything that happened just now. If it's a blessing, it won't be a servant in front of her, and if it's a calamity, not simple. It can't be avoided. How could a normal person order the housekeeper of his place and doesn't provoke me again? Mother, these servants are getting more and more unruly. I will remove if you don't teach them a lesson from the cultivation they will bully their master in the future. His words contain traces of chilling intent, so you can't be everyone quivered. Why don't you let your wife discipline them instead? And Jing's will look at one another to have lost a nerve in her head and was still chattering. Patriarch, the other woman had already actually killed a few times, but she still didn't notice. They sighed silently and weren't worried about Yu Qianzhou. Li Hongyang also scolded her wife. They were worried for An Kuang-tsung. In her impression, An Kuang-tsung's patriarch was killed, and he definitely wouldn't let Yu Qianzhou off. He just casually drew a path and trapped her eldest son. This fellow's background was truly unfathomable. How could she offend him? Could An Kuang-tsung win against him? If you continue to nag, will send a few people to escort you to the 100-Flower Palace. Yu Qianzhou was speechless when he met such a woman. Frowned and said. He pointed at the woman's pretty face and something happened to Xiaotian, his 4 major clans' trip to the demon ghost region would be ruined. Is it sure Yotian's wife or Xiaotian waved his hand and said, sure. Xiaotian looked at him with a wry smile and thought to himself, to me. If you don't wear this servant's clothes, I wouldn't be able to stay in the cultivation world. Li Hongyang took over the conversation. They didn't say anything else and walked out of the secret room. Please don't be offended. When they walked to the entrance of the main hall, the wife of my eldest son, disciple suddenly ran over and reported, clan head, the wife of my second son, AO of Supporting Immortal Island wants us to pass a message to Supporting Immortal Island's disciple Yu Qianzhou. She doesn't live up to her name. To Supporting Immortal Island. Why did Yu Qian choose such a shrew? In my opinion, he should just divorce her. Waved his hand, and the disciple retreated. His words were not polite at all. Yu Qianzhou wanted to go back. The people at the side were speechless. He cast a spell to the guards on the nearby tower, Xiaotian really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. To lead Yu Qianzhou and fly out was so angry that her face turned pale. When the 5 of them arrived, she said with a trembling voice, Wang Yuan was waiting at the entrance, and he immediately brought them to the back of the shop. She was so angry that she cried. Dongfang Yu Qianzhou didn't have a good impression of shrewd-like women behind his back. What he said just now was who came with him on both sides. Seeing that she was crying, Yu Qianzhou he immediately became interested in watching a good show, and the other 3 bowed in turn and said, "Cry." The 4 major clans to cry. Zizong, Tan Fei, too soft, Jingzhua, louder, and Wu Licheng. Bao Wancher did as he said and began to cry loudly. The elders on both sides really held the armrests, and she even made a lot of body indicating that they didn't need to be overly courteous. Hui, who was at the side, tried to comfort her. Dongfang Chang AO turned around Li Hongyang felt a headache coming and he said in a deep voice, sure. Xiaotian quickly pulled Yu Qianzhou back and said, boss, the moment you arrived at the 100 Flowers Valley, please be lenient. You beat up sect leader on Kuang-tsung's grandson. She is my sister-in-law. And when you arrived at Hat Island, you just beat up the Luo sect leader's son. Do you think that you haven't caused enough trouble for Supporting Immortal Island? A voice that pretended to be angry was heard with a hint of laughter. I was forced to do this. Yu Qianzhou turned to look. These 2 people really deserved a beating, out from the entrance. And they were the ones who started it both times. He wore a scholar's hat and a vermilion official's robe. I was just defending myself. Otherwise, who else could it have lost a face for Supporting Immortal Island? Sure, Yu Tian. Yu Qianzhou said with a little grievance. He seemed much more mature than before. By Zizong, especially the other 3 small tufts of beard on his mouth. How was this still the arrogant Yu Qianzhou? Wang Yuan didn't say a word as if she saw her savior. The other 2 elders looked at each other, tears and rushed into Xiaotian's arms. They were actually very satisfied all her grievances' way of doing things. During this period of time, evil servant. The whole cultivation world was talking about how this disciple of Supporting Immortal Island him a lesson for you, beating up this sect leader's son, and then beating up wife and walked over with large strides. Good. He really made Supporting Immortal Island proud. Yu Qianzhou couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. I won't talk about the past. He said, sure Yu Tian. Tell me honestly, we haven't seen each other for so many years. Dongfang I didn't think you'd become a flower protector. I'd like to see how you'll teach his head and said, no, how dare you. I have been staying in the Wu clan, Yu Tian and apart from beating up that Luo Xiaohan, the words he was about to shout got stuck in his throat. Then why did An Kuang-tsung's old ancestor Qing Nu personally when he came to his senses, he hurriedly lifted the hem of his official robe and ran over to message to bring you back to Supporting Immortal Island immediately. Yu Tian greets Mr. Dongfang I haven't seen Mr. for many years. It was exposed. You've been well. No matter what their relationship was like in the past, meeting old friends was always a happy thing. Yu Qianzhou was stunned, and he said, supported him and said with a ancestor Qing Nu, I don't live as well as you do. I don't even know him. Why is your wife and flirting in public? He thought to himself, I have never heard of this person in An Kuang-tsung. What a simple life. Am I asking you, or are you asking me? Yu Tian only covets some romantic relationships. Yu Qianzhou said with a bitter Mr. Celestial Elder Dongfang, I am innocent. After all these years, these few days, I have been following the 4 major clans' successors really envies you, and I didn't do anything. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. He painstakingly pursued the path of cultivation, and they immediately cupped their fists in unison was ethereal, and Elder woke up from his dream. The 4 of us can testify. He finally gave up and settled down to marry a wife and focus on his career. He really didn't do anything out of line. The successors
However,
of the four
he
major
couldn't help
clans
but have a
still had
cultivation
some weight.
complex in his heart.
Dongfang Chang,
He sighed to
looked
himself,
at them, stood there for a moment.
His third wife
and said
was the
in a
one
deep
he was
voice,
envious of.
"Follow me back to supporting
He
Immortal
often wanted
Island
to
first.
chat with his third
We can
wife,
talk about anything
but it was
else
difficult
when we get
to
back."
see her leave the forbidden area of the back garden.
An elder at the side took
At
out
this
a flying
moment,
artifact
Bao
that
Wancher
looked
was
like
no
a small
longer
boat,
crying,
and Yu Qianchou
she was
immediately
looking at
jumped
her
onto
husband
it
with
under
her mouth
everyone's
wide
gaze.
open.
After
No matter
Dongfang
how stupid
Chang
she was,
and
she
the
could
other
sense
two got
that
on
the
the
servant
boat.
in front
The
of her
small
was
boat
not
turned into
ordinary.
a stream of light and flew
Sure,
away,
Yu Tian
leaving
waved
the
at her
people in
and
the
said,
courtyard to send
"Wancher,
them off.
come and greet Mr.
Riding the wind, breaking through the clouds,
Bao Wancher
they flew
didn't
across
know where
the
to
sky.
put her hands.
Yu
She
Qianchou
walked
sat
over
alone
gracefully
at the end,
and saluted
thinking
with a
about how to
flushed face.
explain when he
Bao
got
Wancher
back.
greets Mr.
On Guangcang's
I was
old
reckless and
ancestor
offended
Qing
Mr.
came
just
to
now.
supporting Immortal Island.
Please forgive
Needless
me,
to say,
Mr.
Lu Changqing's matter was
Si
exposed.
who was at the side, was very obedient.
Looks like the matter of finding
She didn't
Yan
need to be
Juixian
reminded
will have
and
to
came
be
over to
postponed.
Bao. When they
Si
returned to
Tuhui
supporting
greets Mr.
Immortal Island, the small boat directly landed in
Yu
front of
Qianchou
Penlai
snorted
Pavilion,
coldly
and they
at
got
Bao
Wancher and ignored her.
Dongfang Chang
Instead,
led him
he
upstairs,
raised his hand
and
at
the other
Si
two
Tuhui,
didn't follow,
indicating that she didn't have
They
to be
didn't
so
go to the
polite.
sect master's room,
He
but to a
smiled
large
and said,
room that was
"Are you
used to receive
Tian's
guests.
wife?"
As
I'm
soon
old
as they
acquaintances
entered,
with your
Yu
husband.
Qianchou realized that the
Wife,
atmosphere inside was a little
husband,
strange, and he secretly
This
thought
mister's
that
words
something
were
was
a little
wrong.
rude.
After
Si
Dongfang
Tuhui muttered
Chang
to herself,
reported
but
to
she
the
nodded
sect
with a
master.
smile and
He
retreated
also
to the
bowed
side.
to everyone.
Sure,
When he
Tian
retreated
saw
to
that
the
Yu
side,
Qianchou
the
was
room was
ignoring
full
his
of familiar
apology,
people,
including Master
He
Guan
immediately
Weiwu
gave
and
his third
Ferdinand.
brother a look, asking
The two
him
of
to
them
plead
looked
for
at him with a
leniency.
strange expression.
Sure,
but he didn't see
Xiao
a
Tian
tall,
understood and
white-haired
walked over
old
to
man
pull
in
Yu
a green
Qianchou.
robe.
He
He
was
smiled
standing
and
beside
said,
Sect
"Boss,
Master Feng
my
Xiangqian,
sister-in-law actually
sizing
has
him
a
up.
good heart.
He must be
She's
on
just a little
Guangcang's old
outspoken.
ancestor Qing Nu
Don't
Feng
bother with
Xiangqian
her."
frowned and said,
That's
"Yu
right,
Qianchou,
that's
do
right.
you know your mistake?"
Sure, Yu Tian
I know
walked
my
over
mistake.
and said,
Yu Tian apologizes
Qianchou
to Mr.
hurriedly
on my
bowed.
wife's behalf. Everyone in the room
I
was
hope that
stunned,
Mr. will
but they
forgive
heard
my
him
wife
say,
this time.
"Disciple
For my
shouldn't
third
have
brother's
caused
sake.
trouble outside and brought trouble
Actually,
to the
Yu
sect.
Qianchou wouldn't really bother
Sect
with
master,
an ordinary person
please give
like her.
disciple another chance."
However,
Women
disciple
sometimes
will
relied on
definitely
their
change
status
for the
and
better.
didn't know the immensity of heaven
So,
and earth.
did you really kill on Guangcang's
In order to be
sect
less
master
long-winded in the
Changqing?
future, he couldn't
Feng
help but scare
Xiangqian
her
said
a little.
in a deep voice.
He immediately pointed his
Dongfang
finger and
Chang
shouted,
was
"Bao
shocked.
Wancher, I'll spare your life
He
this time
suspected
for the
that Yu
sake of the
Qianchou
Shou
had
brothers.
caused trouble again,
But
if
he
you
didn't
dare to
expect
do
that
this
he
again,
killed on
I'll
Guangcang's
definitely
sect
take your
master.
head.
How
When
was
that
that
time
possible?
comes, it'll be useless no matter who pleads for
I
mercy.
killed on Guangcang's sect master.
Hurry up and thank Mr.
Yu Qianchou was stunned,
Sure, Yu
and
Tian
he said
tugged
after
at
a
his
long
wife.
time, "Sect
Bao
master,
Wancher
did I
felt
hear it
very
wrong?
wronged.
Did you
How
say
could
that
she
I
be
killed on
treated worse than an
Guangcang's sect
outsider
master
in her own home?
Isn't that so?"
However, she still
Feng
thanked him
Xiangqian
honestly.
scoffed. "This
The
matter
matter
was
has been
settled just like
investigated
that.
clearly, and you
Bless
still
the
want
heavens.
to quibble?"
Yu
Sect
Qianchou
master,
patted
you
his
must be
shoulder and
mistaken.
sighed. Xiao Tian
How
and
could
I
I
are going
kill
to
on
Wanhua's
Guangcang's
sect master. Do you want to join
Yu
us?
Qianchou argued.
Sure. Xiao Tian almost vomited blood.
Chapter 213.
He looked at his mother,
Feng
who was
Xiangqian
glaring
said
at
in
him
a deep
guiltily.
voice.
"Looks like you're going to
Si
resist till the
Tuhui's
end
face
and
was
refuse
already
to admit
red.
it."
Bao
Yu Qianchou
Wancher's
stood
eyes
there
were
with a
wide
wronged
open.
look and didn't say a word.
Sure, Yu Tian kept
It was
smiling
as if he didn't do
foolishly
it.
at Yu
How could he
Qianchou.
admit it? This question
You were
was very
originally a
difficult to
disciple of
answer.
on
Guangcang, why did you join Fu Xian Island? In
Speak.
fact, he really wanted to
What
go
are
out
your
with Yu
intentions?
Qianchou. Feng
It was not
Xiangqian
for the
shouted.
fans of Wanhua brothel,
Although he
but
said
purely
that,
for Yu
he
Qianchou.
couldn't bear it in his heart.
However, his wife,
Such a rare
mother,
and good
and
seedling was
sister-in-law
going to be
were all
destroyed
at the
here.
side.
Damn
How
it.
was he supposed to answer?
I'm exposed. Yu Qianchou
Yu
joked.
Qianchou
Are you
didn't
going or
reply
not?
to him.
Why
Instead,
are you smiling
he
foolishly?
turned around and bowed deeply
Give
to
me an
Guan
answer.
Weiwu.
Sure,
With a distressed
Xiaotian's
expression,
twitched.
he said,
"This disciple
Boss,
was originally
you
a
just
commoner
want to see
in
the
mortal
world in
world.
chaos.
My family
You're
was
not
quite
allowed
wealthy,
to go,
and I originally
Bao
wanted to live
Wancher
a
opened
carefree
her
life.
arms and stood in front of Sure
Fortunately,
Tian.
my ancestors
She
saved
glared
on
at Yu
Guangcang's
Qianchou
sect
and
master.
said,
Even
"Lu
if you kill
Changqing,
me, I won't let him
in
go
order
to
to
that place
repay
with
the
you."
kindness,
Lu Changqing brought me to Guangcang
I didn't
to
know that
cultivate
she was
even
a
though I didn't
feminist.
have a spiritual root to
Yu
cultivate.
Qianchou chuckled and
said, then, I became master since your wife doesn't want you to go, then forget it. Under the encouragement of my master, this disciple concentrated on training day and night, not daring to slack off for lowered his head and followed behind. Perhaps it was heaven rewarding the diligent. I was a disciple of the Azure Light sect who had no spiritual roots and was humiliated by my fellow disciples. If you dare to go, I'll fight it out with you. Stepped into the refining cheese stage. Bao Wancher jumped onto Shi Yuqian. This should have been a happy event, tightly. But who would have thought that my master would warn me not to reveal a bit of my cultivation not far away? Yu Qianzhou's laughter could be heard. This disciple didn't understand. Tuhui's eyes revealed a trace of curiosity. Because my master was attacked and died. Who was this person? I was so angry that I exchanged a palm strike with the head's grandson Lu Jingguang and revealed my cultivation. Chapter 219. Afterwards, the speed I understood why my master repeatedly warned me not to reveal my cultivation. It was much faster than the speed at which a horse could run or a pigeon could carry a message. Sect Master, once the news of Yu Qianzhou being expelled from the supporting Immortals Island was released, it caused a huge uproar. But how could I have any cultivation secrets? Of course, an ordinary I only know how to make up for my lack of cultivation with such a huge uproar. Because of this, the main reason I was demoted to a spirit stone mine to do hard labor. 100 Flowers Valley. It was only a day after my master passed away. Master on Guangcang. They couldn't wait any longer. Beat up the son of Deluo. So be it if you have to do hard labor. This guy seemed to be sect leader didn't want to let me go. He sent Elder Lu Wanxian to threaten Guangcang and his grandson had been killed. I almost died in his hands several times, but I didn't know any cultivation 1 million high-grade spirit stones. How could I tell anyone who could provide information about Yu Qianzhou? One day, the magic illusion reward for taking Yu Qianzhou's head was 5 million high-grade dignified elder of the and the reward for capturing Yu Qianzhou alive used me as a shield in order to escape stones. Fortunately, as soon as the news of the Azure Light sect was released, the entire cultivation world was stone mine. I was disheartened and didn't think about cultivation anymore. Sect master on Guangcang. So, I left quietly. It was hard to thinking that it was just a nightmare. However, that I never for those from the small sects, 1 million, 5 million, everyone from or even 10 million upper spiritual stones were tempting enough. It turned out that Yu Qianzhou had such a miserable experience. Didn't have the support of supporting Imagine a disciple he was just spiritual formation suddenly being able to cultivate. He was no different from some sects would indeed use all kinds of means. There was nothing to be afraid of. Who would have thought that Yu Qianzhou was an exception? They sent out their disciples to investigate. However, even if they did not expect to earn 10 million high-grade to their own disciples, it would still be good anyone would be disappointed and leave on Guangcang just like that. Those poor rogue cultivators tried their luck at the green-robed elder and couldn't help but reveal a rumor that on Guangcang's ancestor Qing Yu failed to capture Yu Qianzhou when he confronted Yu Qianzhou's words. Instead, few of his white he allowed Yu Qianzhou to escape unscathed. He cupped his hands at everyone and sighed. After thinking about I won't hide my everyone shame. Understood that this was pure nonsense. I also heard about this matter after the incident. How could a late-stage transcending it was indeed those evil disciples who were devoid of formation and did the wrong thing first. It was a joke and a rumor. Let's not talk about the sect's misfortune. The entire cultivation alliance began to operate. These words undoubtedly righteous sects that joined the cultivation alliance and everyone felt even more sympathy the cultivation world from the bottom of their hearts. If necessary, they could especially kill him the cultivation pavilion's principal elder sect was especially supportive of this. He thought to himself, at this moment, in the Wu clan's ancestral hall of the 4 major clans, now that he has entered my supporting Immortals Islands gathered together, he is my supporting Immortals Islands disciple. After receiving the news from Wuxia, Amir on 4 clan heads come to my supporting Immortals Islands expelled from Fuxian Island. This is outrageous. After the 4 clan heads he had been thinking about how they issued a secret order to the disciples of the 4 major clans to search for Brother Qian. Don't blame yourself. Feng Xiangtian calmly comforted him. Once they found him, they were to protect him at all costs until he returned to the 4 major supporting Immortals token from back then. Once this news was out, Yu Qianzhou still didn't answer him directly. The righteous sect actually had such an unconventional trait, causing everyone to frown. Moreover, he was a traitor of clearly not putting the sect master in his eyes. Moreover, he was such a famous traitor. Was expressionless. If he could join the evil Dao, the former bowed it would be a huge blow to the reputation of the righteous. I wandered around. Why wouldn't they do it? I met an injured Qi as a result, the entire evil Dao alliance began to operate rapidly. Unfortunately, I couldn't save him no matter how hard I tried. Understanding that they would protect before he died, he said that he was originally a disciple expelled by supporting Immortals. If any of the sects suffered any losses because of his name was Ji Wuxuan, all the sects would compensate them together. He gave me a token to repay my kindness and said that I could join supporting Immortals Island with this token. 10,000 demons. I originally gave up on the idea of cultivating, as he personally when I heard that it was the world's largest sect. I couldn't help but want to give both the righteous and the evil Dao took action. I became a disciple of supporting Immortals had completely disrupted the entire cultivation world. No one knew if the righteous sects would succeed. He looked around and the evil Dao was there a disciple called Ji Wuxuan in the bustling streets of the Huaxia Empire. Yu Qianchou was wearing black clothes and a small master. Yu Qianchou he was dressed like a servant and was completely unaware of everything that happened in the cultivation world because of him. He was a disciple of the leisurely strolling behind Shi Xiaotian. When he saw the grandson of the late elder passing by and people looking at him his father died in battle for supporting immortals immediately restrained himself. I didn't expect, not to mention anything else, the fact that he was misunderstood by Bao Wancher at the general's mansion. 3 generations of his grandfather and grandson are all dead. Thus, he found a passerby as a comparison. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. He put down his hands behind his back and expressions were a bit sad. He followed the disciples who were expelled from the sect didn't have a good ending. Boss. They didn't think that even the grandson of a dignified elder of the cultivation pavilion would end up like this. Why did his boss look like a thief? The elders who were able to hold the immortal supporting medallion were all senior elders. Feng Xiangtian came back to his senses and shouted, "Have you ever seen a young master call a servant on Guangcang? Please act more properly and call me Little Qian." Yu Qianchou kept staring at Guan rolled his eyes, who felt uncomfortable under his gaze. "Little Qian, you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin." Feng Xiaotian said a little unnaturally. At first, he wanted to protect Guan Wei. If you say so, we will go. After all, talents were rare. Put on a servant smile. However, thought Guan Wei had repeatedly looked down on him and even dared to deceive him. I wonder what the difference is between the brothels of the ancient times and the ones in my previous life. He was simply courting death. I wasn't in the mood before, but now that I'm outside, I'll be letting myself down if I don't take a look. 2 disciples pushed a person in. When did I say I wanted to go? As soon as the person came in, it seems like you're the one who said you wanted to kowtow to everyone. Shi Xiaotian was speechless. He said, "Great immortals." He originally wanted to get a carriage, but he didn't know why Yu Qianchou rejected it and insisted on walking. He only stared at his master. Guanhua Lu should be considered as the number 1 brothel in the Huaxia and shouted to that person. There were branches in all the bigger cities. See if he is the person who released those flying swords that night. Yes. To be able to obtain the title of Wanhua and make so many men scrambled over like ducks and spend money like water. When he looked back, it immediately cried out in joy. Eldest young master. Yu Qianchou came because of this point. He nodded to Feng Xiangtian. This was the number 1 brothel in the world. It was my eldest young master compared to the number 1 brothels in the world with the evil person who destroyed my Yu clan. It seemed like more people knew about the former. Yu Qianchou was slightly stunned. The night was about to turn dark. He looked down and saw that the person looked familiar, on a small street but he couldn't remember his name. The moment one entered the street, he then looked at the clothes he was wearing. The fragrance of pink powder. It was the uniform of the Yu residence. This small street was abnormally bustling with people walking to and shake his head with rubbing shoulders with each other. What else could he say? It was a street where one could eat, Feng Xiangtian said with an expressionless face. This was all thanks to the number 1 brothel in the world, Wanhua Lu. Yu Qianchou didn't answer. When the 2 walked in, he looked at Guan Wei exclaimed in admiration that this was a first-rate place to spend money. Could it be that you have nothing to say? Shi Xiaotian's face also became lively. His heart turned cold. Suddenly, there was a crowd of people rushing towards the largest building in the middle of the street about his difficulties. That building was decorated with colorful makeup, and it was even more beautiful than a bride's. Guan Weiwu actually didn't say a word for him. The fragrance of pink powder was coming from that building. He didn't have any intention of protecting him. Needless to say, this was definitely the relationship between the 2 of them was so bad. The 2 of them were swept by the crowd. Since things had come to this, was there a need to stay on at the crowded carriages on the street? The smile on Yu Qianchou's face gradually didn't take a carriage. He slowly closed his eyes. Patted the shoulder of a person beside him and asked, seeing his disciple like why this, is it so lively? A look of pain flashed across Guan Weiwu's face. Is Wanhua Lu like this every day? It wasn't that he didn't want to speak was trying his best to squeeze forward. In fact, after he knew about this he looked at Yu Qianchou he immediately went to find his senior brother. One look and I know it's your first time brother would show mercy. Today is the day but the latter immediately scolded him, saying that this matter involved other sects, normally, and whether it was fair or not was related to the reputation of Wuxia Island. If you're lucky, you might be able to see Qianchou's master. He shouldn't intervene in this matter. He ignored him and continued to squeeze forward. He knew how to deal with it. The number 1 courtesan was also the world's number 1 courtesan. Yu Qianchou suddenly opened his eyes. Yu Qianchou was instantly interested. Suddenly, he secretly knelt down in front of Guan Weiwu and tried to push 3 times in a row. At this moment, standing up, a shout came from the street, hem of his gown with one hand, get out of my way, pulled it with both hands. The crowd turned around and saw an officer riding a large horse leading a large group of soldiers. He pinched it with one hand and slowly raised it towards everyone. The commoners didn't dare to block their way, and the crowd began to squeeze to the sides again. He raised the entrance of the 10,000 flower house was immediately surrounded by a group of soldiers wielding shining longs. You and I are no longer friends. Although there were soldiers guarding the entrance, the carriages on the street still couldn't enter. Yu Qianzhou have nothing to do with There were more soldiers protecting a group of people who got off the carriages and walked towards Wanhua, am free to fly in the sky and fish in the sea. They were probably nobles. No one can control me, Yu Qianzhou. Seeing these people easily pass through the crowd with their heads held high, Yu Qianzhou really wanted to throw a few bricks at them. How dare you? But after thinking about it, he shouted. The two of them squeezed into the crowd and waited for more than 2 hours. Such disgraceful words. After the soldiers had probably escorted hundreds of nobles in, they finally retreated and guarded the entrance of Wanhua's face turned frighteningly, not letting random people in. Since the establishment of supporting people who were escorted by their servants were allowed in after negotiating with the tortoise bus at the entrance. When had there ever been a case of a disciple squeezing on the street? They were basically commoners or people who weren't already powerful, so they were naturally prevented from a little dumbfounded. They could only watch from the disciples who had just escorted the person and looked at each other. The number one courtesan of the world's number one courtesan. This daddy here was really courageous to publicly break off relations with the world's number one who holds great military power, but I can't even enter a brothel. In the entire cultivation world, how many people would dare to do such a thing? Was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. Such a person would probably not be able to escape. Who was shaking his head and smiling bitterly. It's not too late to take back what you said just now. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across his face. You will be in big trouble. He raised his hand and shouted sternly again. The third young master of the national pillar general's estate has to be destroyed just like this. In fact, he was already trying his best to protect Yu Qianzhou. Chapter 220. Feng Xiangtian's face was loud and clear. He raised his hand and pressed down on pillar of the state general, signaling him to stop talking. It immediately produced a miraculous effect. He didn't know that Yu Qianzhou had already made up his mind. Immediately quietened down. His initial respectful look was already gone. Everyone turned their heads to look in one direction. Shook his head indifferently. Becoming the center of attention, water can't be retrieved. Xiaotian was momentarily stunned. The words that Yu Qianzhou, he never expected like Qianzhou to make such a move. There's no way to take them back. At the entrance of the thousand-flower brothel, spilled water the military officer holding the saber by his waist looked around and sneered. Yu Qianzhou, I announced that from today on the house servant, Yu Qianzhou was naturally unable to attract his attention. His life or death has nothing to do with supporting Xian Island. He was a little shocked. As the third young master of the pillar of the state general's entire cultivation world, although Xiaotian rarely appeared in public, he turned around and said to Qing knew him on a few occasions. Brother Qing, I'm sorry. As a soldier, the pillar of the state general who had been fighting at the western borders for many years was undoubtedly the idol of the entire Wuxia Empire. He also had a very high prestige among the citizens of the empire. This meant that the supporting immortal especially island had completely abandoned when the general's 2 million soldiers split into 6 groups and defeated the 6 countries, all the forcing the 6 countries to sign an armistice. The supporting immortal island would never stand up for him again to the peak. How could a in their formation disciples survive against the Luo guardian of the Wuxia Empire? This was a disguised form of punishment. The military officer shook his head and sighed. While the citizens also had a look of surprise on their faces as they squeezed to the side, afraid to block also didn't come back to her senses for a while. The military officer waved his hand, turn out like the soldiers guarding the thousand-flower brothel. He had always guessed that Lu Changqing's death had something to do with supporting immortal citizens had vacated. Otherwise, they lined up neatly on both sides of the path. This matter had always troubled the upper echelons of Xiaotian and waved his hand to open his cloak. They couldn't afford to offend holding the saber in his hand, had to deal with it. He knelt down on one knee and said in a clear voice, from what happened just now, this general is supporting immortal island wasn't deliberately putting on a show. Greetings, this matter really had nothing to do with supporting immortal island. Third young master. Qing Nu thought about it again and again. The 2 rows of guards and the guards of the thousand-flower brothel and said in a deep voice, Yu Qianzhou, it was unknown which citizen knelt down first, the green destiny, but the citizens of the entire street all knelt down with difficulty. If it's in your hands, you should return because it was simply too crowded. They all shouted. This humble citizen greets third young master. It was destroyed along with that broken horse tail. This humble citizen greets third young master and said, even if their shouts rang out one after another, do you think and it was clear that they were all heartfelt respect. The dignified sect leader on Xiaotian actually tried to kill my family members in the secular world. Coming to a brothel in the name of the national pillar general's residence was not something to be proud of. Only you people would do such a thing. Was dumbfounded. Now, you still have the cheek to ask me for the great destiny to have such high prestige. Is there something wrong with your brains? Everyone couldn't help but feel regret for his actions earlier. This Yu Qianzhou didn't even care to have caused the citizens to love the pillar who was famous in the cultivation world. He was really arrogant. His conscience
seemed
really
like it
couldn't
wasn't
be justified.
strange that he
could continuously beat
After
people
all,
up. He was a soldier in his previous life. The Green Destiny sword
be able
was
to
destroyed.
command
Such respect from the
Qing
citizens,
Nu's expression
it was
was a
impossible
little
to
twitching.
do so without
She
experiencing
had seen the
1,000
horsetail
miles of
wisp that
bloodshed.
was destroyed,
So she
Yu
was afraid that he was truly ashamed
to
to have tarnished the reputation
Suppressing
of
the
a
anger
general
in
like
her
this.
heart,
Qing Nu said
the
in
nobles
a deep
and the
voice,
rich who had entered the 10,000 flower
let you
house
down
were
first.
also shocked by the continuous
Logically,
shouts outside.
I shouldn't pursue this matter.
Third young master.
However, you killed
Which
my
family's third young master
had
had
come to cause such a big
Whether
commotion.
you are willing or not,
They
I will
sent their
imprison you
servants
in
to the door
Angquansang
to
for 100
inquire.
years.
All the soldiers
Also,
and
who are
civilians
those
on the
black
street
clothed
knelt
people?
down. You
Only
want
the
to
two
imprison
young
me
men
for
dressed
100
as a
years?
master and a servant stood
Dream
out,
on, making the servants
Yu
speechless.
Qianzhou said in disdain.
At this moment,
Qing
Qing
Nu
Nu hadn't been
couldn't help
humiliated
but roll
like
his
this for
eyes
many
at Yu
years.
Qianzhou with a little complaint.
She immediately had the intention
latter
to fight.
smiled awkwardly.
Yu Qianzhou waved his hand at her and
circulated
smiled.
his true yuan and said
Wait,
loudly, "My fellow
If
citizens,
he had anything to
please
ask
get
or
up.
to fight, he would have to leave the
Sure
supporting Immortal
Xiaotian,
Island
am
first.
not worthy of such a big
We aren't
greeting."
people of supporting Immortal
His voice
Island.
surged through the entire street,
Fighting in their
drowning
territory
out everyone's
is not giving them
greetings.
face. The soldiers
right.
and commoners were shocked.
As you wish.
What a loud
Qing
voice.
Nu was really angry.
As expected of the
This
son of
kid
the
was
national
too
pillar
arrogant.
general. If she
Like
didn't
father,
teach him a
like
lesson,
son,
she would be letting herself
Everyone
down.
thanked him and said,
She
"Thank you,
immediately
third
cupped her
young
fists
master."
at Feng Xiangtian and
They
said,
got up with
Sect
difficulty.
leader Feng, please open
Commander
the island's
Yuan,
protective
please
array
get up.
and let us out.
Sure
Feng
Xiaotian reached out
Xiangtian
to help
nodded and
Yuan
flicked a
Fei
white
up.
light out of the window.
When the latter heard the
That
former's
white
loud
light
voice
flew
and
into the
saw
sky.
him coming to help him up,
Old
his
man,
competitive
come out
spirit
and
was
reason with
secretly
me.
aroused.
Yu
He
Qianzhou
wanted
shouted
to see
at
if he
Qing
had
Nu.
real skills or was just
He
using
jumped
his
out of
voice
the
to scare
window and
people.
did a somersault in the air.
Who knew that he didn't even
The
have
sword
the
on
strength
his
to
back
resist
was
and
unsheathed
lifted
and
up
drew a
just like that,
semicircle, carrying him into the
Yuan
sky.
Fei couldn't help but be shocked.
Sect leader Feng,
What
sorry to
great
disturb
strength.
you.
His
Qing
gaze
Nu
swept
cupped her
past the
fists
sword
and
hanging
flew
on
out of the
Xiaotian's
window.
waist.
No wonder he was
However,
brought up
with
in
her
such a
cultivation
manner.
at the end of the tribulation
Seeing
stage,
their commander
she
stand
naturally
up, the
didn't
soldiers
need to play
also
such
stood up.
low-level tricks like sword
Yuan
kinesis.
Fei waved his hand and
She
said,
turned into a
Third young
shadow and
master,
chased after Yu
please.
Qianzhou, who had
You're
become
welcome.
a black dot in the sky.
Sure Xiaotian
Let's
cupped
go
his
and
hands
take a
and
look.
walked forward under Yuan
After
Fei's
getting
lead.
Feng Xiangtian's approval,
Yu Qianzhou
several
followed
figures
behind
flew out of the
dejectedly.
window. Stepping into the myriad flower house,
Hearing the whistling
Yuan
sound
Fei
coming
stayed
from
outside
below,
to
Yu
continue
Qianzhou
guarding while
looked
the
down
pimp
and
led
was
the master and
speechless.
servant in.
This
The
tribulation
lanterns were
stage
lit and the
expert is
myriad
really an
flower
expert.
house was filled with guests.
Flying in the air is faster
Alluring
than me
women
flying
were
on my
walking
sword.
around with plates of fruits.
When he looked
wine,
back and saw
all
a white
kinds
cloud
of
above
delicacies,
him, he immediately raised
Hearing
his
that the third
cultivation
young
to the
master
limit
of the
and
national
flew into
pillar
it.
general's residence had
Want
arrived.
to run?
The nobles who were already
Nu,
seated gathered
who was flying
downstairs to
over,
greet him.
sneered in his heart when he
In
saw
terms
the
of
situation
status and
above
rank,
him. There was no need
his
to greet
silhouette
him.
could still be seen.
Many of the
but as he
nobles had a
smiled,
higher rank
he suddenly
than the national
vanished
pillar
into thin
general.
air.
However,
He had used
he was the one
teleportation,
who held the
and when he
strongest
reappeared,
military power
he was
in the
already at
empire.
the edge of the white cloud
He
high
was
up
someone
in the
who
sky.
could make the entire
Yu
Wuxia
Qianzhou
empire
had just
tremble
managed
with
to
a
jump
stomp of
in
his
before
foot.
him.
He was
When
much
Qing Nu
stronger
saw
than
him
those
hiding
nobles who
inside,
only had
she did
titles
not
in
chase
name
after
only.
him. Instead, she flew directly to the top of the cloud.
gracefully greeted the crowd.
Looking around, this cloud
One
was
moment
only
it was
100
that little
meters
prince.
in radius.
The next moment it was this
Immediately,
little prince.
she released a divine
Sure
sense to
Xiaotian
scan the
handled the
entire
situation
cloud.
with ease.
After a while,
Yu Qianzhou
Qing
nodded to
Nu's face
himself.
changed. As
Her
expected
divine
of
sense
someone
went
from
back
the
and
upper
forth
class
several times,
but
today,
she didn't find
he
the
had
person
finally
inside.
witnessed the power of the national
How could
pillar
this be?
general's residence.
With his cultivation,
He had a new
as
plan
long
in
as his
mind.
body moved slightly,
They were
it
in
was
an
impossible
enclosure
that her
with a
divine
big
sense
performance
couldn't find
stage
in the
in.
middle.
At this
There
time,
were two levels of
Wuxia
seats for
and
spectators.
Dongfang Chang
Also
the upper
quickly
level
came
was
to
an
his
open
side
single
and floated
room,
together
while
in
the
the
lower
air.
level was a circle of
Seeing his
single-table
bad
banquets.
expression, Sihai
This
said,
should be the
"Senior
place where the
Qing,
courtesan
what's
Belle
wrong?
would sing and dance
That
tonight
guy
to
is
celebrate
gone."
peace and prosperity.
Qing Nu said with a
Sure
strange expression.
Xiaotian arrived late.
The people who came
The
later
single
looked
room
at each
upstairs
other.
had already been occupied.
How could this be?
However,
With
there
Qing
was
Nu's
no need to
cultivation
worry.
at the end of the tribulation
Naturally,
stage,
there
how
were
could
people
Yu
who knew
Qianzhou
their
escape?
place and left one for him.
Sihai was stunned
The
and
two
said,
of them were in a single
"Impossible."
room on the second floor,
With Yu
one
Qianzhou's
sitting and one
cultivation,
standing.
how could he
he escape from
the one standing
hands?
behind Shi Xiaotian
Even
was,
I don't think I can do it.
Yu Qianzhou.
No, I clearly saw him
couldn't
come
possibly
in,
sit
and he
with
should
his
still
master
be
in
inside.
public.
Could he? How could I not
Wang
find him?
Lu had arranged for some
This guy
prostitutes
is a little
to come
strange.
over.
However,
After Qing
Yu
Nu finished
Qianzhou
speaking,
felt that they were
her
too
divine
unattractive.
sense swept back and forth again.
He found an excuse that the
Oh,
third
Sihai
young
and the
master
others
didn't want
also
to release
released
their
their
divine
chase them
sense
out.
to check, but they
He
still
was
found
used to
nothing.
seeing beauties in the cultivation
I don't believe
world.
that this guy can escape
Naturally,
under my eyes.
he wasn't interested in the
You guys
so-called
back
beauties
off.
here.
After
if it wasn't for the fact that he still
wanted
to see the sword
suddenly
everyone
appeared
was
in
fighting
her hand,
for, he might have turned
she
around
raised it
and
towards
left.
the sky and shouted.
Soon,
Green
the performance on the
art.
central stage began.
The long sword in her
For a
hand
moment,
emitted a green
the sound
sword
of zither,
shadow that was
flute,
nearly
and
100
drums
meters
rang
long.
out.
It
More
pierced
than a
the
dozen
sky
graceful
and suddenly
women danced
radiated
gracefully,
an imposing aura
causing
that
the
spread
crowd
out,
to cheer.
causing the clothes of
Yu
the people not far
originally
away to
thought
flutter.
that they were going to do a striptease
They
or
exchanged
something.
glances.
Who knew that
The
after
old guy
wandering
lost his
around
face,
for a long time,
got angry,
there wasn't
and wanted
anything
to kill.
interesting at all?
The huge
One
sword
group
in
after
Qingnu's
another
hand
went down,
suddenly moved,
and another group changed into different styles.
It looked huge,
They didn't have
but
the
it was
awareness
very
of a
dexterous
brothel
in
at
her
all.
hand.
He really didn't understand why
The
those
huge
princes
sword
and
directly
nobles were
stirred
cheering.
the clouds.
Yu
As
Qianzhou
her hand
wished that
moved
he could
faster
throw a
and
grenade
faster,
down and
the
let
whole
those
white
white
cloud
cloud
was
stirred
stirred
up
like
like
a
and
tornado,
brandishing their
and
claws
gradually
quickly
get off
dissipated
the
in the
stage.
air. He
Until
wanted
all
that
the white
courtesan to come
clouds
up and take a
disappeared
look
without
as
a
soon as
trace.
possible.
Qingnu put away the
If she
sword
didn't
in
look
her
good,
hand and
then
threw
they
it back
should
into
leave
the
as soon as
storage
possible
bag.
to avoid wasting
But
time.
in front of her, there was
This
no one.
brothel was too boring. The music played by those musicians didn't have any
Chapter
passion at all.
2:15.
When it
They
fell
looked
into
around,
his ears,
but it was
like
obvious
a
that Yu
lullaby.
Qianzhou had run away.
It made him sleepy,
A
and
core
yawned
formation
repeatedly.
realm disciple had escaped
After
from
an
a
unknown
cultivator
amount
in
of
the
time,
final stage
just
of the
as he was in a
tribulation
semi-conscious
passing
stage,
stage,
the commotion around
he had
him
disappeared
woke him up.
without a trace.
The
and it was
lonely and light
inexplicable.
sound of the zither entered his
Qingnu,
ears, and it
who
was
was
quite
floating
refreshing.
in the air, had an ugly
When
expression.
he looked again, the surrounding
It wouldn't be
princes
an
and nobles
exaggeration
were all
to say
leaning
that
against
this was
the
her
railings to
humiliation.
watch. Did Yu Qianzhou leave supporting Immortal Island
The
just
courtesan
like
is
that?
coming out.
Oh, Sihai
Sure,
groaned in
Xiaotian
pain
said
from the bottom
softly.
of his heart. He was
walked
really
to the railings to
optimistic
watch.
about Yu Qianzhou's potential.
Yu Qianzhou's eyes lit up.
Especially everything that
He
had
had been
happened
waiting
now.
for the stars
It made
and
him
the
sigh
moon.
endlessly.
Finally,
At such a
was
young
here.
age, Yu Qianzhou
He also
already
followed.
had such means. In the depths of
However,
the lanterns,
everything
a
was
figure dressed in a
impossible
light
now.
gauze and thin red
Yu
palace
Qianzhou
dress
had
leisurely
leisurely
left.
walked over.
They flew to Qingnu's
A long
side,
white
and
jade
Sihai
hairpin
was
was
inserted into her
superfluously
jet black
senior.
hair bun. Did Yu Qianzhou run
The
away?
two ends of the hairpin were
Qingnu
pulled up by
looked
a red
around
veil
with a
that
gloomy
covered her
expression.
face.
There
Her
were only
pretty
a few
face was
clouds in the
faintly
blue
discernible,
sky, and below them was
It was
a
hard
vast
to
sea.
see
clearly, but it was
With Yu
exceptionally
Qianzhou's
cultivation. Where could he run
Her
to?
white and tender lily-white
Could it
hands
be?
were hugging a plain zither.
He stared at supporting Immortal
One
Island,
side of her
which
ample
was
chest
shrouded
was
in
lightly
mist.
pressed against it,
Oh,
making the
Sihai
other side
understood
even
what he
more
meant,
abruptly
and he
perky.
said in astonishment,
The red
"Senior,
veil covered
do you
her perky
suspect that he
buttocks,
went back
trying to
supporting
cover her
Immortal slender
Island?
jade legs?
That's impossible.
However, the boundless
When we
spring
just came
scenery
out,
was always
the island's
inadvertently
protective
revealed
formation
when her
sealed
jade
supporting
legs strode
Immortal
forward.
Island again.
The beauty
He
dressed
can't
in
go
red
back.
lightly walked onto the stage.
Why don't?
She put
Senior
down the
go back
jade
to
zither on
supporting
the table
Immortal
that had
Island to
already
look
been
for him?
set up by someone. Qingnu did have
She
that
nodded
thought,
slightly
but
to
even
the
if Yu
surrounding
Qianzhou
people
went
and
back
then
to
sat
hide,
down peacefully.
what right did he have to search
The red
supporting
veil
Immortal
on both
Island?
sides of her buttocks was
He pondered
quietly
for a
pulled
moment,
open,
shook his
revealing
head,
her white
and said,
and tender
"There's no
thighs.
need."
Good.
There's still a long way to go.
Someone clapped and shouted.
I don't believe that this brat
Immediately,
will never show
it caused
himself
a loud
in the cultivation
commotion.
world. Everyone
Please
agreed
bid
one
farewell
after
to
another.
sect leader Feng on my
Yu
behalf.
Qianzhou finally became
I won't go
spirited.
down anymore.
He clapped with all
that
his
said,
might. He flew away without
Damn it.
looking back, disappearing
He finally
into the
saw
distance
someone
in the
who was
blink of an
pleasing
eye.
to the eye.
The few of them
Although
sent
he
him
couldn't
off
see
with
her
their gazes
gaze clearly,
before
just
exchanging
based
glances.
on her figure alone, it
All
was
of them
already
shook their
top-notch.
heads and smiled bitterly.
The single room for the two
They
of them
then
was in a
sized
good
up the
position.
surroundings under the clear
The
sky
courtesan
and bright
happened to be
sun.
facing the two of them,
Such a
so
bright
they could
and
slowly
clear world
admire
was
her.
disturbed by Yu Qianzhou
10
like
jade-like
this,
fingers
and it
pressed
seemed
down
rather
on the strings
strange.
of the zither,
Gently
Let's go
evoking
back.
a quiet and exquisite
Oh,
sound.
Sihai sighed as the few
The
of them
surroundings
dived
immediately
towards Fushan
quieted
Island.
down. After
Yu
returning
Qianzhou
to
nodded.
Penglai Pavilion,
At
Sihai
first,
told
he sounded
Feng
a little
Xiangtian
sad,
and others in
but it
detail
was still
what
a little
happened just
interesting.
now.
At least
Everyone
he
was
was
able
stunned
to
and
continue
surprised.
listening.
The
Qingnu,
sound of the
who
zither
had the cultivation
reverberated
of the
faintly.
final phase of nature's
The
test,
face under the
didn't
red
catch
veil
Yu
suddenly
Qianzhou
sang
and let him run
softly.
away. I am a fox that has
Guan Weiwu
cultivated
and
for a
Ferdinand
thousand
looked
years.
at each other and secretly
A
breathed a
thousand
sigh
years of
relief.
cultivation, a thousand
In the main
years
hall
of
of the
loneliness.
Wanfen Garden,
Majiogu,
the
who was
smile
holding
on
a
Yu
walking
Qianzhou's
stick,
face
was standing in the
instantly
middle
froze.
of the hall with Lan
Then,
Bingxiu as
it
support.
started to twitch.
She was looking at
Hibiscus, who was sitting motionlessly on a chair. Tears were silently
Chapter
rolling down
221.
Hibiscus's beautiful face.
It was a completely different tune from the Wuxia Empire, with a different style and singing style.
However, it was undeniable that it was indeed pleasant to the ears. It was completely different from the current high-pitched tunes that were popular. It was simple and mellow, yet moving. Even those ignorant and incompetent hedonistic sons could immediately understand the meaning behind it. Gradually, the image of a white fox trapped in love for 1,000 years appeared in everyone's mind. White Fox. Shi Xiaotian's face was also filled with shock. How did this popular tune in the cultivation world spread to the myriad flower house in the secular world? Moreover, the person who composed this tune was right beside him. The two of them looked at each other, completely losing the mood to look at beauties. They looked at the Huakue again. Although they couldn't be sure, they had a feeling that the other party was sizing them up intentionally or unintentionally. This Huakue was probably not simple. The surrounding nobles had previously been drooling over the Huakue's beauty, but now they were completely immersed in the Huakue's singing. Even after the song ended, they still couldn't extricate themselves. After a long time, their exclamations turned into cheers. They all felt that this trip was not in vain, so they rewarded the Huakue with gold and silver ingots. However, the Huakue seemed to be indifferent to the praises and rewards of the crowd. Yu Qianqiu and Shi Xiaotian were no longer in the mood to stay. They turned around and were about to leave quietly. Suddenly, a coquettish voice transmitted into Yu Qianqiu's ears. I didn't expect that the abandoned disciple of Fuxian Island that the entire cultivation alliance is looking for would actually be involved with the pillar of the state generals. Yu Qianqiu stopped in his tracks and suddenly turned to look at the Huakue downstairs. Who else could it be if not her who was able to sing the White Fox? The other party could actually transmit a voice. It was clear that her cultivation was above the tribulation stage. No wonder he couldn't tell. Who was this person? Unfortunately, his cultivation was not at the stage where he could transmit a voice. He couldn't question her in public, could he? He could only reveal a stern and questioning gaze. Seeing his reaction, Shi Xiaotian also stopped. He didn't know what he was going to do. Yo! The third son of the National Pillar General was actually an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, hee. Yu Qianqiu, you've really found a good hiding place. Yu Qianqiu heard Huakue's laughter again. Don't look at me like that. You want to know who I am? Then let's meet at the top of the highest mountain in the western suburbs of the capital. Come quickly. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that the Cultivation Alliance won't find out about the relationship between you and the National Pillar General's residence, hee. After Huakue finished transmitting her voice, she picked up her zither and quietly walked away amidst the cries of pain from the crowd. She only left the crowd with a graceful and extremely alluring back view. Many people beat their chests and stamped their feet, asking everywhere why the Oiran Queen left after just one song. No one could answer. Those who wanted to use force were also stopped by others. Since Myriad Flower Tower was able to establish itself in the Wuxia Empire, they naturally had a powerful background or strength to back them up. They weren't people they could afford to offend just because they wanted to. Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes as he watched Huakue leave. He whispered into Shi Xiaotian's ear, I have something to attend to. I'll be heading out first. You play by yourself. With that, he left quietly. Shi Xiaotian looked at the departing Huakue, then at the departing Yu Qianqiu. He sat down thoughtfully. After leaving Myriad Flower Tower, Yu Qianqiu found an empty alley and released a flying sword out of thin air. He stepped on the sword and quickly flew towards the western suburbs. The people of the capital naturally couldn't see it in the dark. Even if they did see a stream of light, they would think it was a dazzling light. The highest mountain in the western suburbs was steep. It should be a place with few people. On the mountain, the chirping of insects could be heard. The silver moonlight covered the mountain peak. The rocks on the mountain peak were exposed and could be considered flat. As the mountain wind blew, a few old pine trees swayed under the moonlight. Yu Qianqiu landed on his sword. He flipped the sword in his hand and carefully looked around. Even if the other party was an expert at the end of the tribulation stage, he was confident that he could escape. It wasn't a big place. Under the moonlight, it was clear that the other party hadn't arrived yet. The terrain at the foot of the mountain was dangerous. In the depths of the forest, it seemed a little eerie. Yu Qianzhou looked at the dim lights of the capital. He stood on the mountain peak and welcomed the mountain wind. He held his sword with both hands and quietly waited for the arrival of myriad flower towers Huakue. Ding ding dong dong. The sound of a zither suddenly sounded behind him. Yu Qianzhou was shocked. He suddenly turned around and his gaze fell on the few old pine trees. A woman wrapped in a red veil sat on the top of the tree and played the zither. Who else could it be other than that Huakue? Damn it! Trying to scare me. Aren't you afraid of pricking your butt while wearing so little? Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice, Who are you? Why did you ask me to come here? How do you know me? Huakue didn't answer. Instead, she played the zither and sang, Yesterday was like the flowing river in the east, far away from me. Today, my heart is in chaos, how troublesome. Did you ask me to come here just to listen to you play and sing? Yu Qianzhou waved his sword and pointed at her. Huakue was completely focused. It was as if she was deeply immersed in her own song. Only when the song was finished did she open her fingers and press on the zither to stop the lingering sound. She sighed and said, Yu Qianzhou, I heard that the song I played and sang today was composed by you? Crazy. Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice, So what if I composed it? So what if I didn't? Nothing much. On the treetop, Huakue's figure flashed, and under the moonlight, he suddenly appeared beside Yu Qianzhou, leaving behind several afterimages. The latter was startled, and he fiercely jumped back. Whoosh! Nearly 100 flying swords suddenly appeared, and they protected him from all directions. Huakue, who was holding the zither, was startled. She didn't see how Yu Qianzhou could produce so many flying swords at once. She also didn't see him carrying a storage bag. She chuckled and said, What are you nervous about? But you do have some skills. No wonder you could kill the sect master of Anquangsung. I'm a little curious. How could that half-baked Hao Wuwei teach a disciple like you? That's right, he might have learned it on supporting Immortal Island. But Hao Wuwei doesn't know how to play the zither or sing. What do you mean by good or bad? I don't know him. Who are you? Why did you ask me to come here? Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice. You don't know Hao Wuwei? Oh. Hee, I get it. You should know the Hao Sansi of Anquangsung, right? Isn't he your master? Huakue laughed. What does my master have to do with you? Huakue smiled and said, I heard that you offended the sect master of Anquangsung because of your master's death. That's why you joined supporting Immortal Island. Yes. You beat up the grandson of the sect master of Anquangsung in the 100 Flowers Valley. Then, you beat up the son of the Deluo sect master at Hat, or Island. Then, you killed Lu Chongqing and his grandson. It looks like you're still brooding over the death of your master, Hao Sansi. Sigh. I didn't expect Hao Sansi to have taken in a good disciple. He's always thinking about avenging his master. It's only right for a disciple to avenge his master. There's no need for you to flatter him. I find it strange. You didn't invite me here to have a heart-to-heart talk, did you? Yu Qianzhou sneered. Only right? Hee. Hao Sansi has finally done something right in this life, so his death isn't unjust. Huakue giggled again, laughing so hard that his body trembled. Su Qin, who was in her arms, stood on the ground. She lifted an arm and removed the veil that was tied to her hairpin. Her charming face smiled at Yu Qianzhou. So familiar. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. He searched his mind and suddenly remembered a person. He couldn't help but exclaim, You're the 100 Charms enchantress of the Demon Illusion Palace. Chapter 222. Oh. Little brother, you have a good memory. I didn't expect you to remember our first meeting. It's not in vain that I've been paying attention to you all these years. Huh. Allure seductress spread her arms and swept her fingers over the strings of the zither. After a string of homophonic notes, she covered her mouth and laughed. Her breasts rippled, and the red muslin wrapped around her swayed with the mountain wind. The color of her lower body was faintly discernible. She was really charming when she smiled. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and thought, amazing. Among all the beauties he knew, he had never seen a woman like Allure seductress. She had the charm of a mature woman to the extreme. No wonder she was called Allure seductress. However, he didn't know whether she was a friend or a foe, so he couldn't be careless. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and said expressionlessly, "Why have you been paying attention to me?" Allure seductress stopped laughing and shook her head. "Are you really confused or just pretending? Don't you know the relationship between me and your master?" Yu Qianqiu's eyes flickered. He had heard the conversation between her and Lu Wanwan in the spirit stone mine. If Hao Wuwei was really his master, Hao Sansi, then the relationship between her and his master was ambiguous. He might even have to call her his master's wife. However, it seemed too ridiculous. How could a dirty old man like his master pick up such an arrogant girl? Besides, Allure seductress was the master of the enchanted palace. Unless she was a pervert. Allure seductress seemed to have seen through his mind. She didn't wait for his answer and told him a story of the past. At that time, Allure seductress wasn't the master of the enchanted palace yet. When she went down the mountain to gain experience, she happened to meet Hao Wuwei, who was also going down the mountain to gain experience. At that time, he wasn't called Hao Sansi. One was righteous and the other evil, so they started to fight. However, Hao Wuwei was only in the early stage of core formation at that time, while Allure seductress was in the middle stage of nascent soul. There was a huge gap between their cultivations. As a result, Allure seductress was not only injured but also captured by Hao Wuwei. The Allure temptress had always looked down on the hypocrisy of the righteous, so she teased Hao Wuwei by saying that she wouldn't kill him as long as he was willing to join her Phantom Palace. However, Hao Wuwei would rather die than submit. Every time he opened his mouth, he would call her Demoness. As a result, he had angered the temptress of 100 charms. Thus, she tormented him until he was on the verge of death. But even if he was on his last breath, Hao Wuwei would rather die than submit. He continued to curse and swear loudly. Allure seductress was shocked. She didn't expect that there would be a man who wasn't afraid of death in this world. She had never seen a man like this before. Her attitude gradually changed from disdain to ridicule, then to anger, and then from shock to admiration. Such a man was indeed rare in the cultivation world, and it could be said that she was convinced. Then, a dramatic change occurred. Allure seductress beat Hao Wuwei to death, but in the end, she was the one who healed him. Under her careful care, Hao Wuwei's mood also changed during the healing process. He didn't expect that this seemingly seductive and absurd woman had such a side to her. As a result, there was a problem. When a man and a woman spent a long time together, once they had a good impression of each other, it couldn't be stopped and the two of them developed feelings for each other. To be exact, the two of them fell in love. In the cultivation world, it was absolutely forbidden for righteous and evil to fall in love with each other, especially in the righteous. Hao Wuwei, who had recovered from his injuries, returned to Anquangsung uneasily. He didn't dare to mention this matter to his master. However, Allure seductress was a woman who dared to love and hate. This might be the difference between evil and righteous. Allure seductress couldn't bear the pain of lovesickness, so she secretly went to Anquangsung to find Hao Wuwei. As a result, Hao Wuwei was scared to death and advised her not to come to Anquangsung anymore. His words almost made Allure seductress die of anger. "I'm not afraid, what are you afraid of? A man who isn't even afraid of death is afraid of this." She was so angry that she simply revealed her whereabouts in Anquangsung and quickly escaped. Her willfulness didn't cause any trouble for herself, but it caused Hao Wuwei to suffer. When the matter was exposed and he was reprimanded by the sect, Hao Wuwei honestly confessed what had happened and almost lost his life. If it weren't for the fact that his master happened to be the sect master of Onquangsung and wanted to protect him, there wouldn't be Hao Sansi in the future. In fact, back then, the sect master of Onquangsung thought very highly of this disciple and even wanted to train him to be his successor. However, this matter was completely ruined. The sect master was heartbroken and reprimanded his disciple severely. He also changed his name to Hao Sansi, which meant that he should think twice before doing anything. In the end, he couldn't avoid the punishment and swore never to have any contact with Allure Seductress again. He even made a fuss and faced the wall to reflect on his mistakes for 10 years. After that, Allure Seductress was a little regretful, but she held on. In the end, the two of them really didn't see each other for decades. By coincidence, when the two of them met again, Allure Seductress couldn't believe her eyes. Hao Wuwei, who was upright and outspoken in the past, had actually become a sloppy old man. She found an opportunity to stop him alone and interrogate him. However, he said that his name was Hao Sansi and that he didn't know Allure Seductress or Hao Wuwei. She mistook him for someone else. After that, he smiled amiably and left. That's right, Allure Seductress cultivated a kind of seduction technique which had the effect of retaining one's youth. However, with Hao Wuwei's cultivation, he shouldn't have aged so quickly and become so much older than her. Even if he did age quickly, how could it be so easy for two people who had been in love for so many years to mistake each other? Both of them weren't ordinary people. Moreover, how could she hide the inexplicable sadness that flashed through Hao Wuwei's smiling eyes? After she spent a lot of effort to figure out what had happened to Hao Wuwei, Allure Seductress cried bitterly for 3 days and 3 nights. She brought all the misfortune to Hao Wuwei. After that, she begged Onquangsung several times, wanting to meet Hao Wuwei. However, how could Onquangsung agree to her request of a demon? It was already good enough that he didn't kill her. Therefore, she tried to force her way in several times, but how could Allure Seductress break in alone? She almost lost her life in Onquangsung's hands. After understanding that one person's strength was too insignificant for Onquangsung, Allure Seductress made up her mind and concentrated on her cultivation. After another decade, she sat on the position of the palace master of the enchanted palace as she wished. When she finally firmly grasped the entire enchanted palace in her hands and was about to visit Onquangsung again, she didn't expect that Hao Wuwei would be killed. Allure Seductress felt like she was struck by lightning. Everything she had done all these years was for Hao Wuwei. Who knew that it would end up like this? For a moment, Allure Seductress was filled with boundless anger. However, the culprit, Daluo sect, was not something that her enchanted palace could afford to offend. Therefore, she picked Onquangsung to vent her anger first. Later, when Onquangsung's spirit stone mine was attacked, Yu Qianqiu personally experienced it. After that, enchanted palace was wiped out by Onquangsung in retaliation. This was also something that the entire cultivation world knew. This story was a bit too melodramatic. After listening to it, Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He didn't know what to say. No wonder Lu Wanwan said that he was Hao Wuwei's disciple. So this was what happened. Sigh. That old man really couldn't tell. He really didn't expect that there would be such a romantic past. This Allure Seductress was actually Master's woman. Then wouldn't she really be on the same level as Master's wife? Chapter 223. Hee. What? You didn't expect this, right? The Allure beauty laughed like a silver bell. Sigh. With a thought, Yu Qianqiu's flying swords disappeared, removing his defense. Scratching his head, he walked in front of the Allure beauty, smiled bitterly and bowed. Disciple Yu Qianqiu, greets Ma. Ma am. For a moment, he still found it hard to associate Hao Sansi, that old man, with this charming woman, but the two of them had an affair, he had to accept it even if he didn't want to. From the old man's previous signs, he still had this woman in his heart, otherwise he wouldn't have given up on himself to that extent. If he didn't accept it, his conscience wouldn't be at ease, and the old man wouldn't die in peace. Yo! That's a good boy. The allure beauty obviously liked the word ma-am. With a charming smile, she walked closer and teasingly hooked his chin with her finger, and even put her arm around his shoulder. That pair of bouncy and plump breasts rubbed against his shoulder from time to time, causing Yu Qianzhou to smile bitterly. Was this woman really as infatuated as she said? Sigh. What a stunner. Damn it. It was really irritating. Unfortunately, he wouldn't do that kind of thing even if he was beaten to death. Cough cough. That. Ma-am, why did you go to a place like 10,000 Flower Brothel? Yu Qianzhou changed the topic, and took the opportunity to stand further away. He didn't want to cause a nosebleed in front of Ma-am. What do you mean? What do you mean I went to a place like 10,000 Flower Brothel? 10,000 Flower Brothel originally belonged to the Enchanted Palace. What's so strange about me, the palace master, being in my own territory? The allure beauty laughed. What? Yu Qianzhou was stunned. So Enchanted Palace also runs a brothel? That's not right. As far as I know, before Enchanted Palace fell, this 10,000 Flower Brothel already existed. You brat, your words are really unpleasant. The temptress rolled her eyes and sighed, forget it, you're quite pleasing to the eye. I'll tell you some secrets. Did you think that after An Kuangsang razed the Phantom Palace to the ground, I would have no place to stay and could only hide in a brothel? Was that not the case? Yu Qianzhou smiled noncommittally. This cheap mistress had really gotten into character. The 100 Charms beauty rolled her eyes again and continued, you should know the Pink Sect, which is ranked 10th in the Devil Dao and ranked 9th after my magical illusion palace fell, right? The Red-Pink Sect was known for its charm techniques. The 10,000 Flower House in the secular world was opened by the Red-Pink Sect. Other than being the illusory demon palace's palace mistress, I'm also the sect master of the Pink Sect. You don't know this, right? Ah. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. To be exact, he was confused by this complicated relationship. The 10,000 Flower House originally belonged to the Magical Illusion Palace, and now it was opened by the Pink Sect. After sorting out his thoughts, he finally understood. He really didn't expect that this mistress had a double identity. She was actually in charge of two big sections. The 100 Charms beauty said disdainfully, outsiders thought that the Magical Illusion Palace, which is ranked 5th in the Devil Dao, couldn't withstand the attack of the Righteous Daos ranked 6th, An Kuangsang, and collapsed just like that. But who knew that my Magical Illusion Palace had diverted more than half of its strength to run the Pink Sect? It was really because of the sudden incident that we were caught unprepared by An Kuangsang and suffered a big loss. Otherwise, with An Kuangsang's strength, it wouldn't have been so easy to succeed. I don't understand this. Yu Qianzhou frowned and said, why did your Magical Illusion Palace divert more than half of its strength to run the Pink Sect? Wouldn't it be better to spend more effort to improve the Magical Illusion Palace's strength? Otherwise, it wouldn't have suffered losses under An Kuangsang's hands. Do you think it's easy for me, a woman, to sit in the position of Magical Illusion Palace's palace master? The 100 Charms beauty asked back, and faintly let out a breath and said, since I, a woman, have taken the position, I naturally have to come up with means to convince my subordinates. For a long time, my Magical Illusion Palace has always been ranked 5th in the Devil Dao. In the past, which sect master didn't want to improve their strength, and didn't want to take a step forward in the ranking? But if you send them up, the sects above them will inevitably come down. Let's not talk about the Righteous Dao's reaction for now. Once you threaten the top-ranked sects, then your sect will inevitably be suppressed by the higher-ups, and it will be very difficult to take a step forward. So when I first took office, I began to quietly divert people to develop the pink sect. The effect is very obvious. Those top sects won't spend too much effort to pay attention to such a small sect. With the support of my magical illusion palace, the pink sect climbed to the 10th place in just a few years. With this credit, it also allowed me to sit firmly in the position of magical illusion palace master. Master's wife is really wise and powerful, this disciple admires you. After flattering her, Yu Qianzhou smiled and said, Master's wife told me such a big secret, aren't you afraid that this disciple will leak it? Leak my secret? The 100 Charms beauty looked him up and down, looking at him like she was looking at a stupid pig, and sneered, you should worry about yourself. The Deluo sect wants to get rid of you as soon as possible. Guangcang has even put up a bounty for your capture. The entire Cultivation Alliance is looking for you everywhere, and the Devil Dao is also looking for you everywhere. Unless you continue to hide in the National Pillar General's office and continue to be a servant, don't show your face in the cultivation world. Once your whereabouts are exposed, you should be prepared to be killed by the righteous Dao or join the Devil Dao. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. He naturally didn't know about this, and couldn't help but smile and said, Master's wife, are you trying to scare me? I'm just a core formation realm disciple, how could I cause such a big commotion between the righteous and Devil Dao? The 100 Charms beauty casually plucked the strings of the zither beside her, and leisurely said, the person who provides Yu Qianzhou's whereabouts will be rewarded with 1 million high-grade spirit stones, the person who takes Yu Qianzhou's head will be rewarded with 5 million high-grade spirit stones, and the person who captures Yu Qianzhou alive will be rewarded with 10 million high-grade spirit stones. If you don't believe me, go to the capital and shout, I am Yu Qianzhou, then you will know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Yu Qianzhou looked towards the direction of the dimly lit capital, and his face twitched. He didn't have the guts to try. In fact, he didn't even need to try to know that he killed sect master Guangcang, so the other party definitely wouldn't let him go easily. It's fine to be a coward once in a while, but it's not in my character to be a coward all the time. As the saying goes, the first to strike gains the upper hand, and the last to strike suffers a calamity. Since both the righteous and Devil Dao are after me, then come. Who's afraid of who? If worst comes to worst, I'll just go back to Utopia and farm. Besides, I haven't fully used my troops yet. A bunch of dogs, do they really think I'm easy to step on? Thinking of this, Yu Qianzhou narrowed his eyes and lightly snorted, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his face. The 100 Charms beauty had been sizing him up with a smile. Mistress, you didn't call me here just to tell me this, did you? Yu Qianzhou turned around and asked. Of course not. The 100 Charms beauty smiled and said, I also didn't expect to meet you today. I'm telling you this because I know you want to avenge your master, and I also want to avenge your master. That's why I'm telling you this, and, Yu Qianzhou asked with an inquisitive look in his eyes. The 100 Charms beauty deliberately paused, then chuckled and said, and I also know that you definitely have someone helping you. I heard that when you killed Lu Chongqing in Swallow City, you brought hundreds of men in black, and there seemed to be experts at the end of the tribulation passing stage. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for you to kill Lu Chongqing with your ability. Sigh. Back then, when I was at the Spirit Stone Mine in Guangcang, I planted a strand of divine sense on you. Who knew that it would be dispelled in the blink of an eye? It seems that your background isn't simple. Chapter 224. So she was talking about this. It seemed like there were quite a few sects that knew about this. Yu Qianzhou praised disapprovingly, Master's wife is really well informed. You even know about this. When it comes to being well informed, I'm afraid there's no sect in the entire cultivation world that can compare to my pink sect. You must know that the purpose of my pink sect opening 10,000 flower houses in various places is to facilitate the investigation and transmission of information. Just like the trouble you've caused in Swallow City, I'll know within an hour, the 100-charm beauty said proudly. Yu Qianzhou was slightly taken aback. The myriad flower brothel had opened almost everywhere in the Wuxia Empire. Thinking about it carefully, the net-like myriad flower brothel was indeed very useful for gathering information. But how much manpower and money did it take? Gathering information in the cultivation world was not something that ordinary people could do. No wonder the enchanted palace was taken down by Anquangsung. It turned out that it had been emptied long ago. But why did she say this to me? With a thought, Yu Qianzhou asked doubtfully, Master's wife, could it be that you want us to join forces and avenge Master together? Smart. 100-charm beauty smiled and said, I also want to see what kind of people are behind you. Why can't I find anything with my information channels? As he spoke, he leaned over with his body fragrance, as if he had no bones. Yu Qianzhou was really afraid of her. She would come over and touch him at the slightest provocation. It was true that he wanted to take advantage of her, but he couldn't do anything serious. So he didn't know who was taking advantage of who. He could only pretend to think of something and quietly took a step away. He frowned and said, I do have some people behind me, but I'm afraid it won't be easy for Master's wife to meet them. What? Master's wife, I told you so many secrets. Are you still going to keep them from me? 100-charm beauty crossed her arms and smiled. Naturally, it became an attractive scenery. Master's wife, don't misunderstand. Yu Qianzhou said solemnly, Master's wife wants to meet them. Unless you are willing to give them all your strength, they won't meet you. This time, 100-charm beauty couldn't laugh anymore. Give them all my strength? Wasn't this a joke? She stared at Yu Qianzhou with sparkling eyes and frowned. Yu Qianzhou, tell me honestly, are you being controlled by the person behind you? Let me tell you, even if your master was still alive, he wouldn't want you to sacrifice yourself to avenge him. What was this cheap master's wife thinking? Who was controlling who? Yu Qianzhou was slightly stunned, and then he felt a little touched. It seemed that she really had deep feelings for his master, Hao Sansi. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so concerned about him. He shook his head and said, Master's wife, you are mistaken. I am not controlled by them. I am just very good friends with them. Seeing that he was unwilling to speak, the allure beauty didn't force him. She sighed and said, It's not that I don't want to let go of the authority in my hands, but the human heart is unpredictable. Before I take revenge for your master, it's impossible for me to hand over the power in my hands to others. Actually, I've been tired of this kind of life for a long time. I can't compare to you men. No matter how high my cultivation is, I'm still a woman. I don't want to live forever either. Her tone was full of helplessness. Yu Qianzhou smiled awkwardly. He actually wanted to take control of the allure beauty's power, but after hearing her words, he could only give up on that idea. The moon was enchanting, and the night breeze was refreshing. The two fell into a short silence. Master's wife, can you find the locations of all the spirit stone mines in the Luo sect and Anquangsung? Yu Qianzhou suddenly asked. What do you want? The allure beauty suddenly turned around and asked. He. Yu Qianzhou sneered and said, Since you dare to have designs on me, you have to pay a price. Didn't you attack one of Anquangsung's spirit stone mines in the past? This time, I want to learn from Master's wife. The allure beauty frowned slightly and said, You want the locations of all the spirit stone mines in both sects? Why? Is it very difficult? Yu Qianzhou asked. The allure beauty shook her head and said, The information on the spirit stone mines of all the major sects is readily available, I can give it to you anytime you want. However, since I caused a ruckus in the past, all the sects have strengthened their defenses around the spirit stone mines. If you have designs on so many places at once, I'm afraid it will be very dangerous. Seeing that she was so concerned about him, Yu Qianzhou was once again moved. He smiled and said, Don't worry, Master's wife, I am very afraid of death. I will not joke around with my life. I have my own plans for the specific operation. The Allure Beauty nodded and said, all right, I will organize it for you tonight. If you want, you can come to 10,000 Flower House to find me. Then disciple will thank master's wife in advance. Yu Qianzhou saluted, then looked at the sky and said, disciple still has something to do, so I will take my leave first. Finished speaking, he summoned a flying sword and was about to leave. However, the Allure Beauty laughed and said, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Are you afraid that I will eat you? Damn! She was just being serious for a while, why is she here again? Yu Qianzhou looked around. This really was a good place to do dirty things. There was no need to be afraid of people disturbing him. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, could it be that master's wife wants disciple to accompany you to see the scenery? Not today. Next time, I will find a chance to let you accompany me to see the scenery. The Allure Beauty giggled non-stop, walked closer and said, you are leaving just like this? Are you not going to give master's wife a gift? Master's wife, whatever you want, just say it. As long as it is within my means, I will give it to you, Yu Qianzhou said helplessly. Meeting this kind of master's wife, there was really nothing he could do. He was really afraid that she would ask him to marry her, so should he refuse? The Allure Beauty didn't answer for a long time. Instead, she leisurely paced around a few times. The moonlight vividly showed off the curves under her thin veil. Yu Qianzhou took a breath and looked to the side. I heard that the two songs circulating in the cultivation world were composed by you. Why don't you compose a song for master's wife as a gift? This won't force you, right? The Allure Beauty finally said the gift she wanted for their first meeting. Since master's wife has asked, how can disciple dare to disobey? Master's wife, please wait a moment, let me think about it. After finishing speaking, Yu Qianzhou also let out a sigh of relief. So this is what you want, I will just casually pirate a song for you. Seeing him slowly pondering, the Allure Beauty's eyes lit up. It should be known that Yu Qianzhou's two songs had spread throughout the cultivation world. Everyone would regard them as classics, especially women, who especially liked them. However, there were not many people who knew that it was composed by this Yu Qianzhou in front of her. Unexpectedly, as soon as she asked, he actually agreed. Seeing him in deep thought, the Allure Beauty thought that he was racking his brains to come up with ideas in his mind. However, she didn't know which song he was thinking about. Of course, the song couldn't be too avant-garde. It definitely wouldn't work if he came up with something like, hum, ha, use nunchakus. It must be something that ancient people could understand and suitable for her. After a long time, she saw him nodding as if he had understood something. He walked to the Allure Beauty's zither, grabbed it, walked to a rock on the cliff, sat cross-legged, put the zither on his knees, and slightly adjusted his mood. Then he said indifferently, Master's wife, this song is for you on behalf of Master. The Allure Beauty was stunned. Just when she was about to say something, she heard the sound of the zither, so she had to calm down and listen. As her thoughts sank along with the prelude, Hao Wuwei's appearance in the past appeared in front of her eyes, as if he wanted to tell her something. At this time, Yu Qianzhou had already started to sing along with the sound of the zither. Don't mention the past again. Life is full of ups and downs. Even if the memory can't be erased, love and hate are still in the heart. If you really want to cut off the past and let tomorrow continue, you don't have to painstakingly ask for my news. Love is a difficult problem, dazzling and confusing. Maybe it's possible to forget the pain, but it's too difficult to forget you. You never really left, you are always in my heart, I still love you, I can't do anything about myself. Because I still have a dream, I still have you in my heart, I'm always easily moved by the past, I always feel heartache for you. Don't be reluctant to stay in the years, I have thousands of unintentional tenderness, don't ask me if we will meet again, don't care if my words are insincere. Why don't you understand? As long as there is love, there will be pain. One day you will know, life will not be different without me. Life is already too fast, I'm so afraid, always with tears in my eyes. Forget me, there will be no pain, leave the past in the wind. The moonlight was like silver, the mountain wind was blowing. Yu Qianzhou sat on the edge of the cliff and sang with all his heart. At this time, the temptress was no longer as seductive as before. Her eyes were already full of tears. She looked like she was scared out of her wits, as if she was talking to someone. Her mouth muttered, "Don't mention the past. I really have to cut the past. Maybe it's possible to forget the pain, but it's not easy to forget you. You are always in my heart. As long as there is love, there will be pain. Forget me, there will be no pain, leave the past in the wind." "Wu Wei, are you talking to me?" After playing and singing a few times, Yu Qianzhou let out a breath, stood up and turned around. Seeing the heartbroken look of the temptress, he was suddenly stunned. He couldn't help but shake his head. "Another infatuated woman. I hope this song is helpful to you, it can make you think better." He walked over and handed over the zither in his hand, softly said, "Master's wife." The temptress wiped away her tears, took the zither, and said with a trembling voice, "Yu Qianzhou, what is the name of this song?" Seeing her like that, Yu Qianzhou really couldn't bear to tell her the name of the song, but he couldn't think of a better name at the moment, so he could only bite the bullet and said, "The name of the song is When Love is Past." Master's wife, disciple will take his leave first. After saying that, he flew away from the crime scene on his sword. Under the moonlight, on the peak of the mountain, there were a few old pines. The night wind was blowing gently. A woman wrapped in red silk was holding the zither, muttering, "When love is past. When love is past." Chapter 225. In the myriad fragrance garden of Fuxian Island, Ferdinand had been suffering. The father-daughter relationship that had improved with great difficulty had now plummeted back to its original state. Furong once again regarded her father as a stranger. She even avoided him everywhere and didn't want to see him. The cause of the matter was naturally that Yu Qianzhou who was expelled from Fuxian Island. Ferdinand was also a shrewd person. He naturally saw that his daughter had already lost her chastity to that bastard. However, it was useless even if he was unhappy. Who asked his daughter to like him? He could only wander around the sect every day, hoping to get more news about that brat. Furong didn't have the mood to cultivate these few days. She lay on the bed in the room all day, staring at a purple gold necklace in a daze. This was refined by Yu Qianzhou for her. There was a small transparent crystal ball hanging on the purple necklace. There was a little red in the small ball, which was very beautiful. Yu Qianzhou once told her that the red inside was a drop of his blood. She didn't know how it was put in. "You don't want me anymore? You're going to abandon me?" Furong looked at the necklace in her hand and muttered to herself. Her tears wet the pillow again. She didn't know how many times she had repeated this sentence these few days. "Who doesn't want you anymore?" A familiar voice suddenly appeared in the room. Furong turned her head to look. Yu Qianzhou, who was dressed in black and wearing a crooked hat, was looking at her and laughing. Furong sat up abruptly and rubbed her eyes a few times. She thought she had seen wrongly. Yu Qianzhou laughed and said, "What? You don't even recognize me, your husband?" Yu Qianzhou. Furong's eyes lit up. She immediately ran down from the bed barefooted and directly jumped onto Yu Qianzhou. She hugged him tightly and didn't let go. She buried her head and cried non-stop. Yu Qianzhou hugged her but with both hands and touched it. He tskeed and said, "Why are you full of bones? Have you not eaten for a long time? It's not as comfortable as before." Hearing this, Furong immediately stopped crying and got down from his body. Using her hand to feel his body, she frowned and said, "I seem to have lost some weight. Don't you like it?" Sigh. Yu Qianzhou let out a long sigh and carried her to the bed. He crouched down, grabbed her feet that were dirty from stepping on the ground, and carefully patted them clean. He picked up the shoes under the bed and helped her put them on while saying, "My family's Furong is pretty, but if you're as thin as firewood, then you're not pretty. In the future, remember to eat more. Don't think that you can stop eating just because you've reached the core formation realm. Have you seen those old guys on Fuxian Island who often don't eat? Let's not talk about being old, dry, and skinny. Do you think you'll look good like that? I don't like it anyway." Furong thought about what he said, and a withered old face appeared in her mind. If she also became like that. Furong shuddered at the thought of it. She hurriedly nodded and said, "Then I'll eat more in the future. You can take me away too." Yu Qianzhou's face twitched a little. It wasn't hard to take her away. The key was that there was already a Chu Ping in Utopia, so there was no problem with Bai Suzhen. He just didn't know how Chu Ping and Furong would react when they met. It was better not to let them meet for the time being. After thinking it through, his expression suddenly became serious. He sat side by side with her and said, "Furong, I want you to do me a favor." Furong, who was previously crying, now seemed to have become a different person with Yu Qianzhou by her side. She nodded excitedly and said, "What do you want me to help with? Do you need spiritual herb seeds? I'll ask my father for it. If he doesn't give it to me, I'll help you steal it." In her impression, every time he asked her for help, it was nothing more than getting spiritual herb seeds. Yu Qianzhou's face twitched again. "With your level, you can steal things from Myriad Fragrance Garden? Wasn't it because that old fellow Ferdinand turned a blind eye to it?" He coughed and said cautiously, "I don't want you to help me with this. I want you to stay in supporting Xian Island and help me be a spy." "What is a spy?" Furong's eyes widened in surprise. Yu Qianzhou acted as if he was serious and whispered in her ear. After Furong heard it, her expression also became serious. She nodded and said, "Don't worry. I'll write down all the news from supporting Xian Island. I'll tell you when you come." "Okay. Then I'll leave the matters here to you. I'll leave first." Yu Qianzhou stood up and said, "Wait." Furong hugged him and said shyly, "Don't you miss me?" Yu Qianzhou was stunned, but he immediately understood. This girl used to be afraid, but now she's tasting it again." He looked around and chuckled, "So it's here? It's not convenient. It won't be good if someone hears us." Furong bit her lip and said with a red face, "We'll be fine as long as we don't make a sound." "Is that so?" Yu Qianzhou nodded his head. Then, he put his mouth next to her ear and said with a sinister smile, "Then, let's try it?" His words were polite, but in fact, his hands were already helping Furong undress. As soon as Yu Qianzhou returned to Utopia, he went straight to Guan Yu's room in the military camp. He took the black clothes from Guan Yu and asked while changing, "How's the new battle plan going?" "No problem," Guan Yu said in a reporting tone, "According to your request, they've been trained to the high standard of ending battles quickly. Chen Feng has also provided enough qi recovery pills according to your request, and they've been distributed to everyone in the army. Each person has 2 storage bags with the capacity of 3 rooms." "Very good." Yu Qianzhou nodded and said, "Have you made arrangements for the 100 people I got last time?" "They've already started cultivating. The basic cultivation techniques are mainly based on the supporting Immortal Islands techniques. Chen Feng has already distributed the newly refined qi storage pills, which will allow them to enter the qi refinement stage as soon as possible. The women under Sister Bai are also planting a large number of spiritual herbs for refining foundation pills. Chen Feng has also started refining foundation pills. I believe that when they reach the 10th level of the qi refinement stage, all of them will be able to break through to the foundation building stage in one go," Guan Yu reported. Yu Qianzhou thought for a moment and said, "Those who are too old, after breaking through to the foundation building stage, let them open up wastelands and farm. After all, they're old, and it's too late to start cultivating now. Even if they continue to cultivate, there won't be any big breakthroughs. Let them live a few more years. Fighting and killing things aren't suitable for them. It just so happens that we can solve the increasingly tight food supply situation here. Let's try our best to be self-sufficient. That way, we won't have to always go out to buy food. If there's a chance, I'll get more people here. Got it. Guan Yu nodded. Yu Qianzhou's hand that was changing paused, and he said in a deep voice, "For this battle, you have to be mentally prepared. I'm afraid that some casualties are unavoidable." I understand. It's impossible to not die in a battle. Guan Yu's tone was a little heavy. After changing into a set of black clothes, the two of them walked together to the military camp's war room. Inside, there was a long table. The company and platoon leaders of each company had been waiting for a long time. When they saw the two of them enter, someone shouted, "Stand up." All of them stood up with a swish and performed the standard military salute taught by Yu Qianzhou. They said in unison, "Chief." Chapter 226. Yu Qianzhou raised his hand and saluted back, saying, "Everyone, please sit." With that said, he walked to the end of the long table and sat down. Guan Yu walked to where Yu Qianzhou was supposed to sit. The two of them were facing each other, so their heads had been turned. Originally, Guan Yu was unwilling. Logically speaking, his current position should be the place where the leader of the team was qualified to sit. However, Yu Qianzhou refused because he had not been here for a long time. Guan Yu was the actual person in charge of the daily training and management here. He had to help Guan Yu establish his prestige because Guan Yu, as the chief instructor, had the lowest cultivation level in this group. Although he was working hard to catch up, it was enough for Yu Qianzhou to firmly grasp this point. It was enough for him to be the spiritual leader of this team. The platoon leaders began to report their respective training situation to Guan Yu. Like an outsider, Yu Qianzhou listened attentively and took advantage of this free time to size up everyone. He was quite satisfied with the results. There was no longer the old-fashioned cultivator expression on everyone's faces. Instead, everyone was in high spirits, looking a bit like soldiers. After listening to the reports, Guan Yu began to announce the operation plan to everyone. It was not easy to come by this plan. Some time ago, Yu Qianzhou had obtained the locations of the various sect spirit stone mines from the Allure Beauty. He had picked the Daluo sect and Onquangsang's mines to study. Only then did he realize that the Allure Beauty had prepared a lot of detailed information for him. The guards of each spirit stone mine, as well as their daily routine, were clearly marked. Yu Qianzhou followed the map and personally investigated each and every one of the spirit stone mines of the Daluo sect and Onquangsang. He did so in secret, not daring to reveal his whereabouts. Finally, he came up with this operation plan. There are 15 spirit stone mines in the Luo sect and 6 in Onquangsang. Our goal this time is to loot all 21 of them. After Guan Yu revealed his objective, he distributed the Jade Archives to everyone and said, "The Jade Archives in your hands contain detailed information about the various spirit stone mines." Ah! Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They hadn't expected the battle plan to be so huge. They had to attack 21 spirit stone mines in one go. Expressions of difficulty appeared on their faces. Yu Qianzhou, who was sitting quietly at the back, suddenly laughed and said, "Everyone, don't hold back. If you have any opinions, feel free to voice them out. Our goal is naturally to better complete this mission." Someone immediately stood up and said, "Leader, I'm from the Exalted Sect, so I have some understanding of their spirit stone mines. Ever since the Phantom Palace attacked on Quangsang spirit stone mines, the defenses of the Exalted Sect spirit stone mines have been strengthened. Every spirit stone mine now has an early-stage tribulation passing elder overseeing it. Although our 3 companies have the advantage in numbers and strength, we don't have anyone who can fight against a tribulation passing cultivator. I'm afraid that even if we manage to take down one mine, we will still suffer heavy casualties. Let's not talk about Onquangsung. It's basically impossible for us to take down all 15 of the exalted sect spirit stone mines one by one. When he finished speaking, Yu Qianzhou raised his hand and gestured for him to sit down. Then, he smiled and nodded at Guan Yu. The leader has already taken your concerns into consideration and has made detailed arrangements to deal with them. Let me brief you all on the overall situation. Guan Yu glanced at the crowd and said in a loud voice, Onquangsung has 6 spirit stone mines. Each mine is guarded by a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, 3 mid-stage nascent soul and 3 early-stage nascent soul cultivators, a total of 15 core formation cultivators, more than 50 foundation establishment cultivators, and 150 miners of varying cultivation levels. This kind of strength is a piece of cake for us. It won't be a problem to take them down one by one. As for the exalted sect's 15 spirit stone mines. At this point, Guan Yu's expression became serious. He stood up and continued, each mine is guarded by an early-stage tribulation-passing cultivator. There are 10 nascent soul cultivators, nearly 50 core formation and foundation establishment cultivators, and nearly 200 miners. Most of them are at the foundation establishment stage. Most of them are at the qi condensation stage like Onquangsung. If the exalted sect didn't send an early-stage tribulation-passing cultivator to guard the mines, it wouldn't be a problem. In view of this, leader has already set up an early tribulation transcendence cultivator in each of the 15 Daluo sect mines. As soon as we take action, the cultivator will help us tie down the enemy tribulation transcendence expert. And if something goes wrong, leader will ask Misty Palace's big sister Bai to personally take action. I'm sure no one doubts big sister Bai's strength. Everyone exchanged glances and nodded. Naturally, this arrangement wouldn't be a problem. However, where did leader find 15 tribulation-passing cultivators? Could it be that leader has another force? At this time, someone stood up and asked, Instructor, this is a good idea, but as long as we attack one of the spirit stone mines, the sects will be alerted. What if the exalted sect and Onquangsung send a large number of experts? I believe that both the exalted sect and Onquangsung are not people we can withstand. How are we going to attack the other spirit stone mines then? Yu Qianzhou sat at the back with a smile and didn't say anything. His subordinate's words were a little discouraging, but he didn't mind at all. This was exactly the atmosphere he needed. Only when everyone was involved would they be motivated to work together. Only then could they make up for the flaws in the battle plan. After all, he wasn't an immortal who could plan everything perfectly. Guan Yu raised his hand and gestured for the man to sit down. He said, Company Commander first, leader has already considered your concerns. Therefore, there is a very important task for your company to complete in this battle plan. Company Commander first, I want you to find a map of the mines in the Jade Archive. The location marked 1 on the map is the location of the communication array in each mine. Before we attack, you will first take out a platoon of soldiers and hand them over to leader to command. Leader will lead them to completely destroy the communication array in the spirit stone mines. This is to prevent the news of the attack from leaking out. At the same time, all the troops will end the battle as quickly as possible. Do any of you have any questions? Everyone shook their heads and sent their divine senses into the Jade Archives to examine them. Sure enough, there were maps of 21 spirit stone mines within. Upon closer inspection, they realized that their training during this period of time had been for the purpose of preparing to attack these spirit stone mines. The location marked 1 should be the location of the communication array in the mines. Guan Yu looked around at everyone and said in a deep voice, Since there are no more questions, the attack will proceed according to the latest training method. Dismissed and get ready. Yes. Everyone got up and quickly left the war room to make their own arrangements. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu said in a deep voice, Yun Chang, in an hour, all combat troops will assemble and depart. An hour later, a hurried and loud bugle call rang out in the camp. A group of fully equipped men in black clothes and masks quickly rushed out of the barracks and assembled in 3 groups at the plaza. Guan Yu rode his tall horse and paced back and forth below the stage. Yu Qianqiu stood on the stage with his hands behind his back and looked down at the people below. At this moment, a ray of light descended from the entrance of the camp. Chu Ping had arrived with little Wu Chou. The 2 of them had been attracted by the bugle call. During this period of time, little Wu Chou had become attached to this beautiful sister-in-law of his. Every day, she would bring him along to experience the feeling of flying on a sword. The little brat was having a great time. Just as the 2 of them were about to step into the camp, they were stunned by the formation inside. There were so many people standing together in a strange black color. They were lined up in a neat square formation, but it was so quiet that only the sound of breathing could be heard. A strong killing intent emanated from the camp, forcing the 2 of them to stay away from it. Little Wu Chou was startled by the aura. He hid behind his sister-in-law and peeked at his brother who was looking down at them from the stage. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the 2 people at the entrance. He raised an arm and opened his palm towards the crowd. After he covered everyone with his divine sense, he shouted in a deep voice, "Depart." In an instant, all the people on and off the stage disappeared. There was no one left in the camp. Chu Ping, and little Wu Chou didn't dare to go in. They held hands and left in silence. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.